Welcome back, everybody, to the RSC-EU Twitch channel. And of course, it is the start to the week that you all need, want, and enjoy. It is RSCast. Welcome back, everybody. Can't wait to go through all of the action from the final week of League Play and take a look at play-ins and playoffs with the two people to my side. The trio has reformed. And since he was away last week, we'll come to Pegasus first. Pegasus, it's the end of the season. It's crunch time. How you feeling?
Oh, fantastic, especially since I'm not a player anymore, so I don't have to scrim every single day. I don't have to have those pressures anymore. It's honestly fantastic. And I do want to apologize for not being on stream last week. I thought with Mal's absence, we were guaranteed not to have one. But shout out to Dunker Avocado for stepping in last week and this week as well. It's time for the best stream of the season. I think we can all agree that I've been here before.
Big shout. Big shout. I like it, though. I like it. You've built it up, and I'm sure it will be. Kingsman, it's the time where every single opinion gets scrutinized down to the letter. How much does that excite you?
Very much. You know I love absolutely getting everyone's opinions and annoying every single person in the league with my outrageous gameplay, but secondly, my outrageous predictions. And longest stream of the day, and it's lovely outside. What are we doing? Well, it's RSCast, and we're back. So, back and better than ever.
It may be warm outside, but it is going to be smoking hot takes taking place on the stream today. But before we get into all of that, before we get into the predictions, you can see over on that L bracket, we've got a little bit of work to do. We've got the recap from last week to go through. So let's start as we always do down in prospect tier. Let's take a look at the results from last week's prospect. And we're kicking things off with Kingsman Gas and Glacies.
Yeah, big weeks for some teams who needed to secure those final spots. And well, for some teams it was gorgeous, like Magis and Montbelliard, both going double win at the top of the table, both making sure they ended their seasons on a high, along with Roz, the top three, all ending very successfully and ending very well to run off their season. However, one team who I gave a bit of a look in last week was Newts. They were holding on to that final 6th place spot, and they lost 2 Game 5s in the final bit of the season. Could it have been absolute heartbreak? Was it heartbreak for Newts? Did they get kicked out of that top 6? Well, only time will find out.
Time will tell. It'll be on the next screen, but first we've got to listen to Sir Pegasus talk us through the Ignis conference.
He said that like it was a punishment, and it is, ladies and gentlemen. Tomfoolery, illusory. They've been fantastic all season as a franchise, but I gave them a few pointers and a few weeks before saying that they were getting a bit too close to the drop. Well, it's been a late fight back. They do get 2 wins in the final stages of league play, one against Rising Star and a sweep versus bottom of the table Spark. And when you do have those opportunities so late in the season, you have to take them. But there was also a bit of a clash higher up on the table. We do see a rare slip here coming from Koryu, who, to be fair to them, had a very, very hard matchup, 2nd place and 3rd place last week as their opponents. They went all the way to Game 5 versus 20 Riflemen, where they were able to squeeze out a victory, but did drop to Embark in Game 4. And for my final point, the teams that were hovering around that 6th and 7th place spot fought against each other in the final week of league play. 1 to the drop, 1 to promote to the play-in stages. Wildcards beat out Prodigy in Game 4, and I wonder what effect that will have on the table.
Well, Pegasus, let's take a look at exactly what effects that had on the table, but we will start in Glacies, and there was only one mover. Well, technically 2. There was one movement of places from last week's bracket, and Kingsman, it was in the all-important play-in places.
It was no movement at the top as Magis, Montbelliard and Roz all go 2-0 to secure their top 3 status, and they're locked in now as Magis take the 1st place medal and that bye in the uppers. However, in the lowers, we have Obscurity and Terror, 9-9, both going 1-1, but Obscurity's greater win percentage sees them fall into 4th place. Then Team Serene, they picked up 1 series win. It was all they needed to promote them to the top 6. Getting that Game 5 win against Newt to drop them out of the top 6 and going double loss in the final week did hurt them, as Newt's season is now over. 7-11, nothing. Maelstrom couldn't do enough either. They needed to win against Montbéliard, couldn't do it, so they are gone as well. Rosaceous and Accelerate, both teams are already out, but they finished their seasons respectively 9th and 10th.
You know, there may be some time in the near future, maybe before the end of the full season, that we do get Kingsman Gas to pronounce Roseus correctly, but that day is not today. We'll have a look now at the Ignis conference, and Pegasus, a little bit more movers in this one.
Absolutely, and I do just want to say for Kingsman Gas, I've also been saying Roses for seasons. That was me just discovering that that was incorrect. But like you said, there are movers on the table, and it was where it mattered most around that 6th and 7th spot. Wild cards technically dropping a rank, but still able to survive after their win versus Prodigy, who unfortunately, with a 9-9 even record, will not be good enough to go into that play-in stages. You needed a little bit more than mediocrity to make it here in Prospect. Wildcards go 10-8, Rising Star go 10-8, and after a fantastic week from Tomfoolery, they climb from 6th all the way up to 4th. This will give them a bye in the play-in stages, which, trust me, is a very, very useful thing to have on that day. And there's a bit of movement at the top of the table. Embark climb after their fantastic win versus Koryu and allow 20 riflemen to sit behind them because the very team they beat, Koryu, were able to take them on. So that's going to be 12 and 6 sitting solely at the top of your table. Koryu do still stand.
Always so interesting, isn't it? Because if Prodigy had got that same record in the opposite conference, they would be going to play-ins. They'd have a chance for postseason. But they were just on the wrong side of the bracket, and going even on the season does always put you around that bracket. So unfortunately, they lose out this time in their debut season. But there is a couple of debutantes at the top of the table as well, looking at you, Embark. So with that said, let's take a look then at the play-in playoff bracket. Now, of course, we don't know how this is going to end, but this is how things are going to go. The play-ins will kick off as you see in front of you. It's going to be Terra versus Wildcards and Rising Star versus Kunekune to kick things off. The winner of each going to Tomfoolery and Obscurity, respectively. Meanwhile, on the top side of the bracket, it's going to be Embark versus Roz and Montbéliard versus 20 Riflemen to determine who will go into the winners bracket, or the upper bracket, I should say, of the playoffs. Of course, the winners of that lower side will go into the lower bracket. And let's see how those teams translate to the playoffs for Prospect. And here we go. So Umagis and Koryu already through as winners of their respective conferences. They'll play against the winners of those playoff guaranteed teams. Meanwhile, that lower bracket is an absolute dogfight. Going to have to win 5 games in a row, including the all-important bracket reset in the grand final if you want to make it out of the lower bracket from the first round. Going to be tough for all teams involved. It's a long way towards the grand final, and it will have to happen at some point soon. All the games will be kicking off over the next couple of days, and we'll be talking to you all about those streams a little bit later on. Pegasus, Kingsman, we'll go to Pegasus first. Any comments on the Prospect playoff bracket before we get things moving up to Challenger?
I'm so happy to see a Team Serene logo there. I'll be honest, it was the only arrow on that one screen, and you guys can't see our faces, but I was celebrating watching that arrow right next to our names just for survival. But you can see how important it is to get yourself into that top 3 spot if it is possible. I mean, having 4th, of course, you do get that extra buy forward, but there's nothing like being in that upper bracket.
Kingsman, anything you want to comment on?
I don't have a team in the Prospects, which is a bit sad, but it's a shame, but it happens. And yeah, as Pegasus mentioned, that 3rd place is so massive, because even if, for example, 20 Riflemen lose, they go into that lower round 1 in the playoffs. So you're guaranteed to make it to playoff day. However, you've got to be on your best performance, because keeping that upper bracket all the way is so much more important.
It certainly is. So that is prospects done and dusted for the regular season. Playoffs and play-ins start this week. Excited to see how things turn out. Let's now switch gears and take a look at the next tier up, which of course is going to be Challenger. And with the Glacies results from week 9, it's Kingsman Gas.
Yes, and Team Serene's Yukubo push on, as well as Eclipse. Both sides were pushing towards the top 3, secure in style. Eclipse first with a 3-0 sweep over Keanu, who were absolutely flying their way up the table. And then a 3-1 win over Inertia, who've had a bit of rocky form, but seem to have found their way. Yukubo also picking up form, getting a huge win over second place Neptunium in 4 as well. So a really impressive game. They did the same to Monsoon, but Monsoon were fighting that top 6 barrier, and it'll be very important to see, was that loss to Yukubo enough, or was it game over for Monsoon?
Absolutely, and another Team Serene logo towards the top of the table. I'm sure we won't hear much of that from Sir Pegasus in a moment. Instead, what we'll hear about is the results from Week 9 from the Ignis Conference.
And the streak continues here for 20 Rook, but unfortunately, it is a negative one. It's good that they gave themselves such a head start at the beginning of the season, but those losses continue to pile up, getting swept by Rise. They are a top team on the table, but losing to Ember being the most hurtful result that they did face. That one went to game 4, but after Braves roster change, things have gone in fantastic form for them, of course, having that aforementioned win and as well a sweep versus Clean, which have been high flyers consistently throughout the season. But they're not the only team that have had a fantastic week and a fantastic streak to back them. Alpha Surge's Veldora have as well a sweep over Qantas and the one result which I think a lot of people have been waiting for. The Game 5, I believe it was a reverse sweep versus Mischief. Invincible no more. It's their only loss of the season. It unfortunately happened on stream, and I'll just say that if you know, you know, that was quite the falling apart.
Yeah, and maybe a little bit of foreshadowing. That might not be the last we're going to hear about that game on the RS cast. Just make sure you stay tuned to find out what that's all about. But for the moment, we need to see what these results did to the standings and our end of regular season standings in the Glacies Conference. Well, it looks like this, Kingsman.
It does. Similar to Prospect, we only have one mover, and as much as both teams move on to the postseason, it is massive for Eclipse. Yukubo, undisputed title takers for the top of league play as they finish the season 14-4, beating Neptunium in that final week, proving vital. And Neptunium finished second, tied on series wins with Eclipse, who with their 2-0 week overtake Thralls and get that upper bracket spot. 12-6, 11-7 for Thralls. That normally gets you the top 3 spot, but unluckily enough, they have been on the wrong side of it. Keanu and Inertia finished their seasons 10-8. Keanu were flying, and Inertia were a bit slow to finish their season, but did enough. Monsoon, as Ryan mentioned in Prospect, 9-9 going average is normally enough to clinch you that 6th place. Not this time. Pardus end their season 5-13, no movement from them or Axolotls, and Koliwatusi improving their reputation very slightly by getting another series win on the board. Far too late. However, beating Pardus 3-1 is surely not the worst way to end your season.
Absolutely not. Stuff to take through into the next season for all of those bottom teams. Meanwhile, over on the Ignis Conference side, there was a little bit more movement, but not really of any consequence, Pegasus.
No, it was not. And you see, underneath 20 Rook's record, it's 8-10. They've been on a huge losing streak. But like I said, that little bit of a head start they gave themselves earlier in the season has allowed them to just about survive. They don't have much time to try and fix things up before play-ins and playoffs because, of course, Prospect and Challenger are all played in the first week of postseason. A big climbers here for Veldora and Ember, who just about cannot get themselves into that top 3 spot, but still, I feel like they're going to be big teams to look out for in the lower bracket. And well, rarer than seeing pigs fly, Mischief got a loss in the final week of league play, and it's got me thinking about maybe, if pigs can fly, I'll jump out this window right now. But honestly, I feel like this will just be a drop in the bucket. Mischief will be back, and anyone who saw how that series ended up being a loss will understand that is nothing you will ever see in play-ins and playoffs, unless I've just cursed them.
You may well have done, Pegasus. If pigs can fly, then lightning can indeed strike twice. And speaking of the play-ins and playoffs, let's take a look at how the play-ins shake out then. We got a couple of very interesting games coming up. My eyes immediately drawn to Veldora, unbeaten in their last 5. Can they continue that against Redirect Inertia? Keanu and 20 Rook also taking to the field. Keanu, 4 wins from 5. 20 Rook, we know how bad their recent form has been. It'd be interesting to see who wins out of that one. Meanwhile, on the top side of the bracket, Clean, not having a great end to the season, facing Eclipse, who started to warm up going the other way. Meanwhile, Neptunium play against Rise, and that is 2 teams that are 4 wins from 5 at the end of the season. We'll see who's able to take home that victory. But of course, everyone in that upper bracket is guaranteed to be through to the playoff bracket, which we can take a look at right now. And there you have it. Of course, a lot of those teams will be decided with the play-ins, but the 2 big boys, Jacobo and Mischief, well, they seemed destined for a date in the upper bracket final. Will someone be able to unseat them? That is the question that will be answered shortly, but you really feel like that is a clash of the titans here in Challenger. And that is where your playoffs stand. So we will switch gears once again, moving to our middle tier this time, and we are going to be looking at the results from the rival tier as we start to look back on week 9 and Kingsman Gas, the Glacies results. Very interesting indeed.
They are, but before that, I didn't get to say my thoughts on the Challenger playoff bracket, which I'm a bit sad about, Rhino. But I did only want to say one thing.
Okay.
I remember 2 weeks ago, Pez put a serious suggestion in that there should be a role for teams that go unbeaten in league play. Sorry, I just want to laugh at him quickly because you basically cursed yourself. I'm so happy you lost that series. I'm so happy. You got so cocky, expecting that you were going to go unbeaten, and you have lost the series in a reverse sweep. So,
It was so self-inflicted.
Okay,
as well,
yeah.
by
It
the way.
was.
It was
Anyway,
so self-inflicted.
anyway.
I want to butt in there because honestly, I feel like I'm vindicated in not giving you guys a chance to speak about that now. That feels like it was the right decision. Anyway,
it was.
As you were.
It so was. Sorry, I had to laugh at him for that because I know he was absolutely gunning for it at the time. Anyway, enough roasting here. Into rival Glacies and Carl's finish as strong as they ended. They get a 3-1 win over first place Momentum, and they continue their form by getting a 3-1 over bottom of the table Mokateki. Momentum, it seemed all too much for them this week, as Chianina, a side that had 0 chance of making the top 6, beat them in game 5. So a team with no chance has just absolutely wrecked, potentially, a team at the top's chance. That'll be something to look out for. Could Momentum hold on to that top spot? It'll only tell. 2 teams as well that are battling out for the top 3 were Atmos and Nightfall. They both go double win, respectively, making their seasons so much more difficult. And we've got to figure out who had that 3rd place spot, because I believe at one point it was Uranum going into the final week.
Yeah, I do believe that was a storyline we talked about as well, where some of the lower teams in the conferences could play spoiler to those teams up the top. Have they? We'll find out. Also, I'd like to say Kingsman said that's enough roasting at the start of his point. It certainly isn't. We've got predictions to come a little bit later. the roasting will continue, I guarantee you of that. But Pegasus, anyone need to be roasted in Ignis?
Not necessarily roasted, but there was a big battle at the border. Flame, Focus, and 20 Robin all hovering around that drop mark, looking to try and just secure themselves in play-ins, and Flame did everything they could. A Game 4 win versus Focus, and also a sweep versus a top team, Kazel, looks to hold them in good spirits. Focus, however, had a bit of a topsy-turvy run. Of course, that mentioned loss, but also a sweep versus 20 Robin, granting them a bit of space in that position. And we'll see where that all lines up later. But no surprises here. Mirage and Streak also continuing their double win records, which they've been able to maintain for a majority of the season, especially, of course, that illusory roster, who again will have a 1 at their loss record.
Yeah, not this past week, though, so that's not too bad. We talked about that in last week's RSCast, but we can now look at how the play-ins and playoffs have shaken out in the Glaciers Conference. Kingsman Gas, couple of movers in here, very interesting.
Yeah, all at the top of the table. Carls, for their storming end to the season, get that first place spot. And fair play to them. Beating Momentum, all the pressure's on you. You've got to figure out if you're the proper team. And they're shown they are the real deal. As they send Momentum to that second place and have to play 1 games in the upper bracket play-ins. Atmos double win week secures them that third place with Nightfall and Uranium just behind. Atmos's drop off wasn't for nothing as they still secure an upper bracket spot. Nightfall and Uranium both 10 and 8 as they latch on. Onka's awful end to the season is not punished by Toads, who despite their 4 wins out of 5 do not hold on, and just by the slightest of win percentage, I believe, by 0.08% is what sent Toads out of league play. Heartbreaking for their roster. And then the teams behind, Nardus with that 7-11. Shianina making sure Momentum didn't get that first place spot. And then Mokateki, Teams 3 and Teams finally back where they belong. And we won't hear Pigs talking about this roster, I bet.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, I was going to say, he still will. You doubt him, sir. Meanwhile, over on the Ignis Conference side, it feels like I keep coming to you, Pegasus, and saying that it was a relatively inconsequential Week 9. It's happened again, a little bit of movement, but nothing really to determine between the playoffs and play-ins teams.
Well, I'll have you know that there was a match on Wednesday that actually made a bigger difference than I think either of those 2 teams could have understood. Ooh. Focus played 20 Robin. It was one of my highlight games I mentioned. Focus landed that sweep, and well, I'm sure you guys can work out if that match had have gone in the other direction, we would have seen 20 Robins on 9 wins and 9 losses, and Focus on 8 wins and 10 losses. That would have swapped those positions. Middle of the week will be the be-all or end-all for this 9-week league play, but they did fight rather valiantly, and this was one of the closer conferences that we have seen throughout the tiers. But of course, at the top of the table, still standing are Mirage, Streak, and Aptus. Even with the greater later performances of Kazel and Flame, it wasn't quite enough to topple down the bronze, silver, and gold.
And so with those standings, that gives us a play-in bracket that looks something like this. It will be Flame, who will be trying to take on probably the team with the worst current record going into play-ins. 5 losses from 5 currently as they play in those play-in brackets. Uranum taking on Focus. That will be a very interesting game with Focus, as you say, winning that all-important game from 20 Robin. Will they have their tails up? No pun intended. Or will Uranum be able to take them out? Meanwhile, on the other side, Streak will take on Atmos. Streak on a bit of a streak themselves. 4 wins in the last 4. Atmos getting a double win game week in week 9, though. Very interesting from them. And Momentum versus Aptus. Another fascinating game where it's fair to say Momentum, well, they're not living up to their namesake right now. 2 losses in the final week. We'll see if they can pull it together in play-ins and get through to that playoff bracket, which we can take a look at now. The only 2 extra teams that we'll take a look at is the seemingly undefeatable Carls heading into the playoff bracket with their 5 wins from 5. Meanwhile, Mirage, that loss in week 8 shouldn't shake their confidence too much. They are back on the horse, and they'll be going into playoffs with a lot of wind behind their sails. Kingsman Gas, talk to me about the rival playoff and play-in picture then, considering you so desperately wanted to talk about the Challenger one.
I only wanted a one-liner in the Challenger one, and I did manage to still get that one out. But I will say, there are some exciting teams in this rival, in the lower bracket, so don't be surprised to see a team make a run. I don't want to spoil my predictions, but do not be
Ooh.
surprised if there's a lower bracket team that has an absolute worldie.
Yeah, I don't think that's in my predictions, but we'll find out a little bit later on. Pegasus, this playoff play-in bracket looks fascinating, doesn't it?
It really does. I stick with what I said earlier. I feel like this is one of the closer tiers, even with Mirage, of course, going 17-1, which has just seemingly been the illusory way this season. Everywhere else, it feels like games can completely flip on their head. I mean, Aptus going double loss last week and Momentum going double loss last week just goes to show you that forms can change so quickly in Rival. And I think it's a little bit underrated of a tier to watch as well. So hopefully we get some good viewerships on those streams, because I'm sure there's going to be some shocks and our predictions are going to be meaningless.
Yeah, well, that does always tend to be the case, doesn't it, at the end of the day? I do just want to make sure, and maybe my panelists can confirm this for me. Rival playoffs start next week, am I correct?
Yes.
Yes, it's Rival and Elite next week,
Elite. Yeah.
and then Master the
Yes.
following week. Yep, absolutely. Just
Indeed.
wanted to make sure, as I don't want to give the wonderful people at home any false information. So Rival will kick off next week, and so will this conference. We move to Elite as we look back on the Week 9 results, and for once, doesn't seem like there was too many results in the Glacies conference that were particularly shocking, Kingsman.
Either a sweep or a game 5 is what you are looking at this week, and one team that continued on from their flying week near the bottom was Saturnia. They got a game 5 win over Swift, who I'm very surprised managed to take it to game 5 given their season record, and a sweep over Tigris. Now, they were chasing playoffs last week. Now, was it enough to get them into the top 6? Well, you'll find out. Porphyra have a really poor end to the season, having a 3-2 loss to Miasma and being swept by Giles, who were chasing that 6th place spot. So not the end to the season they want. However, they do have that week in between, as you mentioned, and a rare Shinjiru loss as well, being swept by Darkness, who again another mid-table team. So all the results are happening. However, not much changing in terms of the league table, it might seem.
And we'll take a look at that league table in just a moment. But yeah, every game but one went to either a game 3 or a game 5. Fascinating over on the Glacies side. Pegasus, a bit more movement over on the Ignis side.
Yeah, and there's just one story here that is a little bit saddening to me, and it is Summit going double win. And I'm sure you guys noticed it in the last week. It was impossible for Summit to get themselves into play-ins contentions, and it was just too little too late. 2 really hard fought game 5 victories against those that are pretty close to them in the table. King sitting about mid-table and Shenron sitting just about around them this season. They had a pretty poor start. And even with those 2 final wins, I'm going to ruin it now because it was already ruined last week. Summit will not be making the play-ins, but giving it all they got in the final moments. Elsewhere on the table, however, Blaze, they have the complete opposite results. It's 2 game 5s, both of which going against their favour. Centurions being able to take them on, a team which, in all fairness, is sitting close to the top of the table there. So technically not a bad result on paper, but it's not going to get you any points moving forward. And then a loss to the team of the hour, the team of the week, the team of the month, it has felt like every time we do an RS cast. Celery Stick, go on another double win week. It was a game 5 versus Blaze and a game 4 versus 20 Raven to continue their march up the table. Was it enough to guarantee themselves the upper bracket? Well, you have to listen to Kingsman first.
Absolutely. There is so much to discuss, but in the Glacies conference, well, it's the same discussion we had last week. No movers in the Glacies conference, Kingsman. All is perfectly balanced as it should be.
It is, and Pegasus makes it seem like it's torture. It's a punishment. Hearing the Glacy standings as it finishes, but he'll be more than happy to see Shinjiru take the top spot. One loss in week 9 doesn't mean they bottled the top spot. And 15 and 3 for both the top two, separated by 1%. 15 and 3 is normally enough to get you top, not for Miasma. Porphyra two game weeks behind, 11 and 7. It's enough to get that third place spot. And Goonie too far behind for third place, but 10 and 8 secures them that fourth place spot. Darkness and Giles, 50% series win rate, 9 and 9, but with Darkness the greater of the two win percentage, sees them go to there. Salamanders and Saturnius, despite Saturnia's brilliant end to the season, play-ins was just too far out of reach as they both finish 8 and 10. Tigris 4 and 14, double loss week means they end their season as poorly as they wouldn't have wanted. And Swift continuing on with their rest of the season fashion, finished the season 1 and 17. I feel bad for whoever was the team that they beat.
Hey, I feel bad for their GM. Shout out Hazard. That's a rough one. As we start to look on the other side, of course, Swift. Unfortunately, it was more of a swift exit for them from play-in contention than it was anything else. Meanwhile, over on the Ignis side, couple of movers, Pegasus, but again, as you mentioned, Summit just not able to sneak into the play-ins.
Yeah, it's devastating. They had more of a chance than I think they could have ever imagined, only being one series behind a Blaze team, which has been losing quite a fair bit in the later stages of the competition. And what hurts even more is looking at that win percentage. It was close. Should they have gotten that extra series win, even if they were equal, I think that would have been enough to tip them over the edge there and get them into that position. So just one being the difference, but that's why you've got to invest all your wins early. Every single series counts in the RSC. But on the other side of things, Solaritas continue their unbelievable streak. It's all greens underneath their series record, but it just about wasn't enough to get in front of Deception, who did actually have a loss this week to All-Stars, ending their insane streak they already had going. Centurions just about edging them out by win percentage. It is just over 2% between them. So if All-Star had not have gotten that victory, Centurions would have dropped down to that third place. But all that does is has you playing the team of the opposite seeding in the second and third in the Glacies Conference. All-Star, however, continue their great form. It's 4 wins in a row, 2 perfect weeks, and a 14-4 record. RLI do really, really well typically with the higher tiers, and I'm going to somewhat spoil a bit for later, but that does not come to an end.
Wow, a bit of foreshadowing coming through from Sir Pegasus as we try to look ahead to this play-in and play-off week, which of course will be next week for Elite, and this is how things shake up in the lower bracket. It's Darkness versus Blaze. Darkness 3 wins from 4 in the last 4 games. Meanwhile, Blaze, well, they didn't end in a blaze of glory. 4 losses from a possible 5. They are struggling going into that play-in bracket. Kings versus Giles looks a little bit more entertaining. Giles have won their last 3, with Kings finding a win in their last game of this week. Winners of those will play Solaritas and Nguni, respectively. Solaritas looking to continue that lossless record into the play-ins, but we know sometimes that form from the league doesn't necessarily translate to form in the postseason. And Nguni also not ending the season particularly strongly, but they've got a week to work things through and find a way out. Centurions taking on Porphyra. Porphyra, again, 3 losses on the spin at the end of the season. Will they fall to the Centurions? We'll find out shortly. In Miasma versus Deception. Deception, on the flip side, one of the strongest form teams coming in to the play-ins. Miasma will have to try and figure out how to beat this illusory roster. Then we have a look at the playoffs. Then only 2 teams at the top of the tables. And of course, it's All-Star and Shinjiru as we look to the playoff bracket. And it will be All-Star at that top side, waiting for their opponents. Again, fantastic end to the season. We talked about them beating one of the informed teams in Deception as well, so they're going to be feeling pretty good entering the playoff cauldron. Meanwhile, Shinjiru, they also enjoyed a good spell of form towards the end of the season, but a loss in week 9, will that shake their confidence? All will be found next week. Kingsman, elite brackets here in front of us. Talk to me about anything you think is particularly interesting.
Well, it doesn't matter your form throughout league play, only the placement, and that is shown by Miasma. 15-3 in nearly every single other conference in every other tier secures you that first place and that bye. They have been unfortunate, and that 1%, I believe it's what they lost one more game than Shinjiru over the season. One single
Wow.
game is the difference between them being in having to face Deception midweek and having to be straight to Championship Sunday. So that is the big one, but I'm more looking forward to see how the teams in good form can push on.
Yeah, and Pegasus, it's another bracket which we look at, and there are definitely a few informed teams a little bit further down the table that could do some serious damage to those favorites.
And that's where my eyes are on at the moment. The last season of RSC in its draft format was the season of the lower bracket run. It felt like a majority of the tiers had one team that went really, really deep into the league. A few grand finalists, one grand final win as well. Shout out 20YAR. And if you're going to look for a team that can do it, I know we're talking about, league play results don't matter. That Team Dexterity Celeritas team looks dangerous late in the season. And it might look like a long road now, but on the day, you just got to beat who's ahead of you.
That's exactly it. Take them game by game, and you never know. It could be you winning the playoffs. Right. Now we take a look at the biggest tier that we have here in RSC. It's the top dogs. It's the master tier, and the results from last week. Well, there was a lot of games to determine places. Less so in the Glacies conference, though, as, well, we'll talk about those positions in a moment. But as we start to take a look at the results, Kingsman, anything particularly surprise you about these Glacies results last week?
Well, there's only one sweep if you want to look at that. But either in the Glacies conference, you went double win or you went double loss. Abyss, Leo, Shokan, and Frogs all benefiting from double win weeks. And that'll be big for their seasons. They were all pushing for a position change of some kind. Iovi were able to pick up a series win against Berserkers. I think that's the standout for me. Taking off Berserkers, who went double loss. They were sitting in that 4th place spot, pushing towards 3rd. And now the two teams below them have gone double win. All game 5s, all very close in the Master Conference. And that'll be good to see how it shakes out in the final league table.
We'll have a look at that in just a moment. But first, we do have to hear about the Ignis Conference. And from what I can tell, Pegasus, if you were losing before this week, well, you continued losing.
That really does feel like it was the case. I will just say, I think that this master tier is the best week we've had of the Ignis the best tier for the Ignis conference we have had all day, and that's because there was lots of action around that border. Zenith really wanting to get themselves into those play-ins contentions. However, having to play Cash's Sovereigns isn't exactly a fun ride. They drop in game 4, but manage to recover with a sweep versus Intact. More action with 20 Rock as well, who did face a loss versus Illusion with a sweep, but their other result would have been a bit of a surprise. A Game 5 win versus Superstar, and it's in the name. It's a team of them. It's a really, really strong master roster, and that's with their GM included. They've got essentially a 5-man roster going on should they want to, but you'll see that it was not quite their week, with also another loss following them to this very man on the desk, Kingsman Gas, sweeping that Superstar side. Unless it was his substitute, because he looks a bit confused. Did you play Superstar, Kingsman?
No, I did. Yes, we played with our substitute regardless. I was just wondering. I was just thinking, how's he gonna roast me in this scenario?
because you weren't good enough to take on Cash. That's Game 5 loss versus
Oh, the series meant
Sovereigns.
nothing. Oh, the series meant nothing. The series meant nothing to both
Spoilers!
teams.
Oi!
Oh,
Oi!
well.
Oi! 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 Spoilers! They
Spoilers!
don't know this yet. They don't know this yet.
Yeah, they
But
don't know
yes,
where. They don't know where.
It does not mean anything. But Inferno also needed a strong final week. And unfortunately, this Brave Esports roster burst out in flames. A Game 5 loss to Huron Maru and a Game 4 loss versus Aces sees a disastrous end to their week. Whether that's their season, we are going to have to show on the next screen. And I can tell you now, there's going to be some GMs and AGMs with heads in hands at the moment.
Bro said the next screen, he doesn't know. He's got to wait one screen because there's Lacey's first. And the only real big change to look at, Kingsman, is at the top of the table. I tell you what, those frogs came from nowhere.
Oh, they did come from nowhere as well. They went 0-6 in the first week, and everyone thought they were just going to run out of steam. They did the exact opposite. Massive final runs from them, and they take that first place spot over Shoken. And now I will just look at that for you. It was about 1% for win percentage that keeps them at the top. So again, the barest of margins here from the Frogs. Velocity 11-7. They barely hold on to that third place spot, but I believe it came with some controversy, if I'm wrong, but that's spoilers a bit for Master. Leo and Abyss, for their brilliant run-ins, only get 4th and 5th. Leo tied but didn't win enough games out of their series losses. Abyss, however, just behind on 10-8, tied with Berserkers, who went double loss, and Heck had a slow end to the season, 7-11. Nefeli couldn't produce anything, 6-12. Iovi got a win in the final week against Berserkers to push them down to that 6th place, and Mavro end the season 4-14, rock bottom of the Glaciers Conference.
I love the surprise in one of our panelists' voice when someone unexpected gets a win. Iovi got a win! It's almost like you weren't expecting it, Kingsman, as we take a look at the Inferno. Inferno? Where am I head at? Ignis Conference. But Inferno are in it. Pegasus, unfortunately, they are also out of it, as it turns out.
Yeah, unfortunately, that has been the case for them. It was quite simply a trip at the final hurdle here. 2 losses, only 1 series win being the difference between them and 6th place Zenith. Were sitting in that 7th spot initially, but both themselves and 20 Rock were able to leapfrog that Inferno side that was sitting there before. So it's a devastating end to the season for the Brave Esports players. But a bit higher up on the table, Sovereigns being able to pick up that double win and Superstar also going double loss sees the RL Island team locked out of that top 3 spot. Therefore, they are going to have to fight in that lower bracket. So Kingsman can still say that his loss did not matter. With a bit of help, I must say, from that RL Island side. But if I'm being completely honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, this Master Conference is absolutely stacked. Those top 4 teams in my head could be essentially in any order, any season. And fair play to all of them for being able to battle it out. And you know what? A rare congratulations to Kingsman Gas for being able to hold 2nd place.
Yeah, but it is 2nd, isn't it?
It is, and I know what Smashy did to him earlier in the season. He was crying in my DMs after that one.
In a conference with Smashy, Cash, and Shark, I think to finish 2nd in league play isn't bad.
That's your opinion, mate. That sounds like a first loser rather than a 2nd place. But we move. We start to have a look at what's happened to those play-in brackets. Then it's going to start in that lower bracket with Abyss versus Zenith. Abyss, one of the informed teams in the Glaciers Conference. And by the way, there's quite a few of those. But at the moment, we are talking about Shadow, as they have gone 5 from 5, taking on a Zenith roster who didn't have the best of final weeks, a win and a loss. We'll see who's able to come through in that one. Illusion, on the other hand, double game win week for them in week 9. They take on Berserkers, who went double loss in week 9. Will the form carry over? We'll find out. They're playing to earn the rights to play against Superstar or Leo. Two teams that couldn't be more different in form coming into the playoffs. Superstar, no wins in 5. Meanwhile, Leo, all 4 of their most recent games have been victories. It's interesting to see how those two sides of the bracket will shake out. Meanwhile, at the top, we've got Virtus, Kingsman's Virtus, of course, taking on Velocity. That one's going to be fascinating. Very similar results coming through into that final week, so we'll see how that one works out. Meanwhile, maybe the one to watch is going to be Sovereigns versus Shokan. Shokan, of course, having a fantastic season, double game win in the previous week, but Sovereigns have not lost in so long. It'll be interesting to see how they battle together. Meanwhile, waiting for them in the playoffs, it's the two Titans of Master. It's Frogs and Aces. These two teams have really set alight the Master tier in the past few weeks, and it'll be interesting to see if they can set alight the playoffs in 2 weeks' time. Kingsman, this is your tier. This is your people. Talk to us about this bracket.
I don't want to spoil my predictions again. I'm going to say it again. But this is probably the most stacked Master playoffs we've seen in a while. This is probably, I mean, we've got the likes of, obviously, Smashy, Cash, as we've mentioned. We've got, obviously, Shark. We've got Dreamy. All players
Sazon.
who... No, don't throw Sezon in the mix. Oh my goodness, we're throwing Sezon in a mix of Cash, Smashy. Oh my lord, what am I seeing? I was gonna throw Khan and Rukia in as the last 2 players, and we've thrown Sezon in. Oh my lord, what are we doing?
He's up there. He's up there.
No, he's
up there.
He's gone to SSA for RLCS. There's no way he's a good player, man.
Wow.
Oh dear.
He's like 0.3%, trust.
Yeah, yeah, and so is everyone else in Master. That's like me saying, oh yeah, Jax. I'm sure Jax will be brilliant. No, I'm just kidding. I love you, Jax. So you'll be brilliant. Rukia might go in all honesty, but yeah, with some brilliant players, and as I was saying before, Pegasus rudely interrupted my list of brilliant players. It's probably the most stacked we've got in the while, with the most main event and bubble players in ages.
Absolutely. And Pegasus, when he's not interrupting people, does he have a good point to make? Let's find out about Master Tier.
Well, isn't it so familiar? Seeing Smashy there in that first seed spot for the highest tier playoffs. We've seen it time and time and time again. We've seen it in Premier. We've seen it in Master. We know what he can do to this tier. And if there was a team to watch, I feel like many eyes are going to be there, because he's become a little bit of a legend of RSC at this point.
Absolutely. Well, that is everything from the previous week. So with that said, we get to now see the finalized franchise standings for the season. This is the big one. This is what the GMs and AGMs are looking for. And we start with the bottom half of the franchise standings, and I'm going to give it to Kings. Oh, okay. Apparently, we're getting a sneak preview of the franchise standings. Oh my goodness. There it is.
Again.
It's going to be there. I mean, the battle of my co-casters is clearly decided, but either way, we're in the bottom half. Kingsman Gas, take us through 20th to 11th.
Yeah, bottom of the table is Panthera. Brave Esports pick up the wins to finish just above them, 34-56 and 35-55. Not great for both of those franchises, however, not the worst. Unitox 39-51, tied with Redirect. And now, I hope Pegasus will mention this stat later on, because I don't want to spoil the top of the table. But 39-51 is 18th and 17th. 20R and Amphibians in their debut season 15th is not bad. 40-50. RL Island 41-49. Maybe get some European players instead of just Irish for the next season, lads. Flawless 13th on their debut season as well. Very solid performance from them. Just under negative. Not too bad. Alpha Surge 43-47. And then System of Solaris 44-46 in 11th place.
That's pretty crazy. 44 and 46 on the whole season across 5 tiers. That is pretty mental. But Speaking of mental, let's take a look at the top half of the table. It does include the organizations from both of the members of my co-commentary team. One slightly higher than the other, Sir Pegasus.
Absolutely, but I'll start from the bottom for now, so Kingsman, we'll get to you quickly. Fort Templar sitting in 10th place, just about able to snag a top half spot. Royal 5 and DSQ Esports all sitting on the same series record, but it's that pesky win percentage making all the difference. And, well, 8 to 7 is where a big change is made to the table, because this is where teams start going positive. Aspire start us off with a 46 and 44, Death Cloud with a 48 and 42, and Team Dexterity, the first ones to break 50, also sitting alongside 40 losses with Shadow Esports. And it's just a last minute snag there by, again, that win percentage mark. Team Serene, my very own, sitting in third place with a 55 series win record to go with 35 losses. And Berserkers, who made quite a big dive in the later weeks of the season, climb their way all the way up to second place and hold on with some distance to my very own organization with a 57 series record. And then for first, we need to give this org a really special mention, because I believe it was all tiers making it at least to the play-in stage. Of course, they almost had two teams going invincible. I mean, one loss. We can joke about it as much as we like here on RSCast, but that is an incredible record. So full respect here to Illusory, who not only were the only team to break that 60 barrier, but technically going 65, they're pushing towards that 70. 65 wins, 25 losses, a 210 goal difference. A huge congratulations to Illusory. All you're missing is that tier win.
And maybe, just maybe, that will come through coming after the playoffs take place. Congratulations to every franchise standings. It's been a long season. We've had to fight and scratch and claw, and I know there's going to be a lot of people who are very pleased with their team's position, and maybe a few that aren't. But, I mean, just the statistics alone, you got to talk about a couple of things. I mean, only 7 orgs going positive across the whole season. Kingsman, has this been one of the most competitive RSC seasons in history?
Yeah, 100%. And when I don't know if this was mentioned already, but the difference between 18th and 8th was 5 series. And you think there are, oh god, time to do maths. There are 90, that's it, 90 series in total across the week. To only be separated by 5 from basically bottom of the table to mid-table is so good for those teams. So it shows how competitive the league is this season. And yeah, big props to Illusory again. 65 and 25 is incredible, with I believe none of their teams going negative in any of the tiers. I mean, same can be said for Berserkers, but they were 8 series behind Illusory in first. So fair play, good job to them.
Absolutely good job all round. Right, this is the part of the show that is going to get a little bit controversial. There's going to be a lot of conversation. There's going to be a lot of things going on. Just remember, okay, we love you all. We say what we say with appreciation and respect. And now we can say sod all of that, because we are about to predict exactly what's about to happen in the play-ins, playoffs. 100% correct. No one is wrong on this panel. Let's get things underway, because not only
Very much been an all or nothing type team so far. Oh, hello again. Very much been an all or nothing type organization so far. They do have some high flyers, but also they do have the fair few teams not doing so. Oh, we had no audio. Okay, that makes
That's
sense.
right, yeah.
Well,
No one's heard what you
welcome
just
back,
said, yeah.
ladies and gentlemen. Trust me, it was all really high
he is having a problem.
Should we do some miming if they still can't hear us?
Oh yeah, hang on, wait. Actually, Kingsman, you've got room behind your chair. Walk down the stairs.
What do you mean walk down the stairs? There is no stairs. There is no stairs.
That's the point of mime, Kingsman. You pretend that there are stairs.
No, but there's no stairs in my house. Like I don't know.
Hang on.
You don't know how to walk downstairs,
about to demonstrate.
Kingsman.
Here we go.
Yeah,
it's like doing this.
Yeah, here we go. Pegasus is about to demonstrate.
Hold on. I'm not going to be very good at it, but it's like.
It's okay. Yeah, there he goes. Off he goes down to the basement. That's how that. Oh, he might have died. He might have died.
Yeah, Pegasus. Wait, no, I cannot. No. Just in case audio comes back. There he is. We're doing.
Okay, should be fixed. Hello.
Hello.
Can chat hear us? Give us a thumbs up. Give us a yes. I mean, we're currently in an ad break. Couldn't think of a better time to be in an ad break. Trout says we're good. I'm seeing ones in chat.
Oh.
Okay, we're back. We heard you for so long, says Ghosty. Okay, well, that's...
Oh, what? Oh,
no one told us, did they? Thanks for the intel, chat. Appreciate all of you. Anyway, we are back. Let's see if we can now hear us while we talk through Archaon's predictions. Let's just make sure that the people can hear us first. Give me a 1 in chat if you can hear us. It looks good. It seems good. 1s in chat, please.
Reptic
there
said
we
good.
go.
Someone said voices. I hear voices
right.
as well.
Me
Moving on to the bracket, we've got in the lowers. Actually, no, they didn't hear me speak about the uppers, did they? So let's go again. We do have Archaon going for Embark with a 3-2 win versus Roz. So that's going to be a very close match to start things off here for their run. Montbelliard taking a victory in Game 4 versus 20 Riflemen. And one thing that I'll be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm quite disappointed with in Archaon's predictions. He's got no lower bracket runs. Terra winning that first match versus Wildcard, but then immediately dropping in Game 5 to Tomfoolery. And on the other side of things, Rising Star beating my Kuni team in Game 4, to then going to lose again in Game 5 to Obscurity. So I tell you what, they're going to be very entertaining games, but heartbreakers to those that work so hard to get themselves to that point.
Yeah, and then we can... I will say, I'm pretty sure we're just going through them, yeah. So the playoff bracket for Archaon as well, Pegasus, looks a little bit like this.
It does indeed. I'm going to start off with the lower round ones first. Roz continuing their run. They were the team that I believe dropped down from that upper bracket, taking it in Game 4, and he's got the exact same happening on the other side of the bracket. 20 Riflemen with the same record versus Obscurity. But at the top of the table, he's got the top seeds doing top seed things. More Game 4s on the plate here. Embark dropping down, Montbelliard dropping down to have to face Roz and 20 Riflemen. This time, he's got a little bit of lower bracket action going on, with Roz qualifying through Montbelliard, but Embark being that upper side, taking down 20 Riflemen for the lower semis, where Embark are heralded to take Roz in a Game 5. That's the second place team in Ignis versus the third in Glacies to get that first spot in the lower final. But in the uppers, guaranteed grands will be Berserkers Umagus with a Game 5 win versus Koryu, where they'll then, through all of that heartbreak they face in the upper final, drop out immediately to Embark in a Game 4. For the grand final, no silly bracket resets. Source is happy and stream ends early. Umagus take it in Game 6.
Well, there you go. That is what Arch thinks, and we will be going through all 4 of our predictions. So, Kingsman, is it as predictable as that? Is it Umagus to lose, or is there something more at play with your predictions as we take a look at your play-in bracket for the Prospect tier?
Oh, everyone knows I love Prospect.
Oh, and still Arch's predictions. Hold up.
And no, I think they look pretty similar to mine. I want to say this is where mine are completely different now.
I'm saying it said Archaon's predictions in the top left.
Yeah, so it was definitely it wasn't my predictions.
There we go. There you go.
Somewhat. I'll give myself enough credit. It looks somewhat similar, although I don't have as many close games. Everyone loves to predict the Game 5. I am straight to the point with it. Embark 3-1. I've rated Louis all season long as probably the best player in the prospect tier, and I believe they'll have no issue getting past Roz in that first thing. Same with Montbelliard. Montbelliard, a very strong roster, had a bit of a dip in the mid-season, but I believe they'll get their stuff together for play-ins and get a sweep over 20 Riflemen who haven't looked as consistent as they might have hoped. Terra versus Wildcard, that was a very much tough one to call. I know it wasn't going the distance, but I gave it to Terra for their end of season. As clutch as Wildcard were, I don't think they will get past Terra. And then I have Tomfoolery getting past them as well. Two very strong players in the Tomfoolery roster with Beast Mode and Simsy. So there'll be two tough players to beat, and in a pressure environment, I believe they will take it. And now here's where I've got the run starting. Got Rising Stars sweeping Team 3 Prospect, who had a very poor run-in and was saved by a series win. And I also believe they will get past Obscurity. I don't think it'll be close. I reckon Rising Stars will take the momentum they used from their first series, and they will continue on. I reckon this might be the start of a lower bracket run.
Yeah, so what is the... Go, I would say, carry on if you would like, Kingsman.
Yes, I forgot. It's straight back to me again for
It is.
playoff predictions. So I've gone for slightly different here. I've gone for Embark beating Umagis in 5 to start it off. A very close series. It was a coin flip, to be honest, and I gave it to Embark. Then I have Montbelliard beating Koryu 3-1. I think Koryu were the worst in form, 12-6 first to get first place, but I believe Montbelliard will do the job there again, and I believe Montbelliard will sweep Embark. It might be bold, but I do rate Montbelliard as the more well-rounded team than Embark, so I have them going that in a sweep. Then moving down to the lower bracket, I believe Tomfoolery will use their momentum and make sure Roz go double loss in the playoffs, not a series singles one, as they go 3-1. I think 20 Riflemen will have something to say after their drop down, and they'll sweep against RLI, but then in a very good game 5 go against Umagis, who I have gone on a bit of a run in the lower bracket, as Koryu beat Tomfoolery on the other side. I then have Umagis beating Koryu in 4 and beating Embark in 5. Embark coming off that heartbreaking loss. I think Umagis, with that momentum, will take it all the way. And then I have Montbelliard from the uppers winning it in 7 and, well, causing a very dramatic grand final.
Yeah, wow, 7-game grand final. Not quite the bracket reset, though, that could have happened. You reckon it's going to get done in that first game? Montbelliard take it, but that is the final that quite a few of us have predicted. Let's see if Pegasus has a similar bracket as we run through his play-ins and playoff predictions.
And I will immediately apologise to Okion because I've also been a little bit boring here in the lower bracket of Prospect. No one making that lower bracket run into the playoff stage. I do have Terra fighting for a Game 5 win versus Wildcards and then dropping in a Game 4 to Tomfoolery. And I have my own team taking 1 win versus Rising Star and then going, you know what, we were happy to be here in the first place, and dropping out to Obscurity as well in a Game 4. I've got a little bit bold here in the upper brackets. Embark and Montbelliard, both for second place teams in their respective conference. I've gone for sweeps because why not? I just think it'd be exciting. I think it'd be cool. And it forces Roz and 20 Riflemen to have to wake up and get on the grind before that championship Saturday. And, we will be moving on to that playoff stage as well. And you can see here that first seed team, Umagis, is going to be another sweep in the upper bracket, this time against Embark to knock them to lowers. Koryu taking a Game 5 win versus Montbelliard. And I know that Kingsman said, listen, none of this funny business with all these Game 5s. I have used them rather sparingly. My penultimate one will be off stream here versus Tomfoolery, meaning the upper bracket team was able to take down those in the lower bracket. But then I do have a double drop off here for 20 Riflemen, losing in Game 4 to Obscurity. However, moving down the lines, fresh from the uppers, I do have Montbelliard losing to that Roz team, who have gone on the grind, like I said, before that championship Saturday. And I've also got Embark getting the victory versus Obscurity to finally see that Shadow roster off. And to try and earn themselves a spot in the grand finals, I do have Umagus versus Koryu, with Umagus taking that victory and having to face Embark after their Game 4 victory versus Roz. And lower finals, I feel like they always have that potential to be more exciting than the grand finals. I'm going to say this is going to be the case here. Koryu versus Embark going all the way to Game 5. It's first versus second in the conference. I've given it to the second place team to earn their run against Umagus, who, well, we've been a bit boring with the first seed team, the team with the most wins in either conferences. I've given them that victory with 4-2 being the series score.
It's pretty hard to see past them at the end of the day, Pegasus, although not for Kingsman Gas, apparently. As we start to look at my predictions as we go through my play-ins, and yeah, I've also, I got to admit, on the Rising Star hype train. I see no reason why they can't get through, taking down Kuna 3-0, sorry, Pegasus, as they then take down Obscurity in a Game 5. Up on that top side, Wildcards just immediately taking out Terra. That is the 6th place from Ignis, taking out the 5th place from Glacies. I'm not sure too many people had that, but I'll tell you something that a lot of people had is Tomfoolery still making it through to the lower bracket in the playoffs, and that is exactly what I have with Tomfoolery, taking out Wildcards 3-1. Over on the top side, Embark take down Roz, and Montbéliard take out 20 Riflemen. The second seeds beat the third seeds, as we then start to have a look at the play-off bracket with these predictions. That will start with the lower bracket Tomfoolery. They will continue on that lower bracket run, taking down Roz. I believe their end to the season is enough, I think, to give them the momentum. Meanwhile, Rising Star just can't make it past the 3rd place in Ignis. It's a 5-game affair. 20 Riflemen take them down 3-2. Meanwhile, on the top side, it's a little bit more clear-cut. Umagus taking out Embark in a sweep. Montbéliard only dropping 1 game to Koryu, which, yeah, that's the both of the Ignis representatives dropping down into the lower bracket early. But they will be playing against each other in the lower bracket semi-final, if you believe what I say. Koryu taking out Tomfoolery 3-0. Embark defeating 20 Riflemen 3-1. Sets up an all-Ignis lower bracket semi-final and an all-Glacies upper bracket final, as Embark take down Koryu in the lower semi, second beating first. Meanwhile, Umagus on the top side will be taking out Montbéliard in a 5-game thriller. I do think we have a replay of that game in the grand finals. Montbéliard should be able to get past Embark, leaving the grand final with Umagus versus Montbéliard, and Umagus taking the victory without the need to go to a bracket reset. Okay, and breathe. We've got another 4 tiers to go. That was Prospect. And now we can take a look at the Challenger tier. And it's all as it does always with Archaon's predictions. And Pegasus is going to walk us through those.
Indeed, starting off in that lower bracket, Keanu with a sweep over 20 Rook, but dropping to that Ember side in Game 5. They've been on fantastic form since their roster change. And then on the other side of the bracket, Veldora beating Inertia and making a lower bracket run with another Game 5 in that lower round 2 against Frowsy. Really does love those Game 5s in the lower round 2, and I'm all for it. I'm all for it. But more Game 4s here in the upper bracket, as Eclipse are able to take on Clean and Neptunian take on Rise. So he's all in on the Glacies conference in the playing stage. But moving on to those playoffs, we'll see if that pattern continues. Starting things off, he does have Yakubo taking a Game 4 win versus Eclipse to advance into that upper finals. They will go on to face, of course, Mischief with a Game 4 win versus Neptunian. Not looking to get their second loss this season. And then off stream, we are going to see, well, we're going to not see, I guess, Ember getting a win versus Clean with a Game 4 victory, and Veldora beating Rise with a Game 5. And let me just quickly double check this, ladies and gentlemen. I think that is both lower bracket teams,
It
beating
is.
those from the others. He's got a double dropout here.
Wow.
Fascinating. I'm sure people will be very, very happy about that. But in the lowest round 2 of playoffs, Neptunium, coming off the back of their drop against Mischief, take Ember down in game 4. That pesky lower bracket side that was able to go on for so long. Eclipse also doing similar things against Veldora, this time in a game 5 thriller. The mainstream clearly picking the better matchup to watch. In the lower semis, Eclipse continue their run with a Game 4 win versus the lower final, where they will face Yakubo after their Game 4 loss versus Mischief. And he's going to say that 1 will be the magic number here for Mischief. They will not lose a second series this season. And similar to a first-seeded challenger team a few seasons back, they will drop in the grand final with a 4-2 record.
Heartbreak for Team Serene listed. I'm sure that was very easy for Pegasus to read out at the end there, as we now switch over to take a look at Kingsman Gas's predictions for the play-ins and playoffs in Challenger.
Yeah, we do. And getting straight into it, I have Eclipse beating Clean 3-1. I know they went 13-5 Clean, but a poor run in from them. And they do have to play that game immediately. So I feel like Eclipse coming off that double win, securing that third place side, will want it more. And I've also gone for a bit of a reverse. I've gone for both third place teams winning. I've gone for Rise sweeping Neptunium, in what I think will probably be the shock of the play-ins at the moment. And Keanu, I've got beating 20 Wook in a sweep. I mean, this was obvious. You surely can't go 5 losses on the bounce to expect to go any further than first rounded. However, I do have Ember striking Keanu down in a sweep as well, taking all of their momentum from that. But I do have Veldora starting to make a run, getting a 3-1 win over Inertia, and then getting a 3-2 win in what I think will be a very entertaining series over the Thralls. Now, we're going to head on to my playoff predictions, and well, I have Clean going out in 5. I think this will be an insanely exciting series, but I don't think they will have it. And I think Neptunium will be desperate to bounce back and will beat Veldora in 4. And then I also have Ember starting to make a little bit of a run here, beating Rise 3-1 in the lower brackets. So a big result from them to go 3-1. I have Eclipse, though, beating Neptunium, coming down from a very close Game 5 against Yukuba. I think that will be probably the series of the playoffs there. Will go to that Game 5, and it will mean everything. Mischief, I have going 3-1 against Neptunium. I think that series will be very comfortable for Mischief. However, I give Neptunium a game regardless. Moving on to the lower semis, that is where Ember's run ends in a sweep to Eclipse. I think it'll be very close games, but I think Eclipse will be pushing on. And now the upper final, Yukubo versus Mischief. Bit boring, I've put both first place teams. However, I've put Mischief to lose their second series of the season to Yukubo in what will be, I think, a very exciting series. However, Mischief will bounce back with a sweep over Eclipse, and then with that newfound momentum, with that game in between, they will take it in the first bracket reset, I think, of all the predictions so far. And I have Mischief getting it in 5, and then Yukubo putting a bit of a more of a fight up, but in the end, Mischief taking it in 6.
That is the first bracket reset we've seen, Kingsman. Very interesting indeed. The comeback from Mischief after dropping down from the upper final could be a storyline that we talk about. Meanwhile, Sir Pegasus, he's weaving his own tales in his predictions of Challenger.
And I don't have to predict my own games. My goodness, this is a miracle. We'll start off in the lower bracket. We've all been in agreement so far with that first lower round 1 game to the score as well. An unfortunate sweep versus 20 Rook. So I hope that they use this as fuel to their fire and come back here when those play-in stages do reach them. I've also got a sweep between Veldora and Inertia, knocking themselves also out of the competition. I've also got a lower bracket run here continuing for Vildora with a win versus Berserkers and a Game 4 victory for Ember versus Keanu, that team that did make a roster change and I've been very impressed with since. In the uppers, I do have Eclipse beating Clean and Neptunium beating Rise, that one being a sweep. And again, I feel like, just like Archeon, we might just have a little bit of Glacey's bias, but I'm certainly all for it. Moving on to that playoff stage, I don't think there'll be any surprises here where I went with this prediction. Yakubo starting things off with a Game 4 win versus Eclipse, and Mischief doing similarly versus Neptunium, which I think are a bit of a sleeper pick for some people. I've also got off-stream Ember with a Game 4 win versus Clean, and Veldora with a Game 5 win versus Rise. So again, it is going to be another double knockout in my eyes, because why the hell not? Neptunium, I've got going Game 4 versus Ember, and Veldora, I liked their lower bracket run. I wanted to see it continue, so I've got them taking down Eclipse and Neptunium in a row in a Game 5 thriller. I think there's going to be a lot of eyes and excitement on that Alpha Surge team. But in that upper finals, Yakubo, typically having slow starts, if I'm being completely honest to you, as a GM, it is such a scary team to watch. They get a lot of Game 5s. I think they'll squeak one out here with Mischief, where they'll just about be edged down to the lower finals, where Vildora's run will come to an end in a Game 4, and Mischief will collect their second and third series loss to the mighty Yakubo, and Shinsu will happily pick up a trophy.
Oh, Copium.
It may well be Copium, but I'll tell you something, it doesn't look far too dissimilar to what I've predicted, Pegasus. Let's take a look at just how different it is. We kick things off here in the play-ins, of course, and I do have to make an early apology to Reptic in chat, who's not going to be particularly happy with me. But we will take a look. I mean, the first game is... I mean, all four of us are predicted, so there's no way it's finishing this way. But Keanu taking out 20 Rook 3-0. Veldora also, I just feel like they've got that momentum coming in. Taking down Inertia 3-0 looks pretty likely to me. Over on the top side, Eclipse versus Clean is going to go 5. But I think Eclipse just have the edge. Meanwhile, Neptunian versus Rise. I don't know. It was just that last loss from week 9. I wasn't convinced. I know they've beaten Mischief, but for me, I think Neptunium might have that one. Meanwhile, to qualify to playoffs, Ember just about take out Kayano, but that will be a 5-game match. And then Veldora taking out Thralls as well. You can't argue with form. And maybe, just maybe, they continue that form into the playoffs. But let's take a look at where we go. As starting in the lower bracket, Ember, they continue their lower bracket run. I do think they take down Clean. They get that in a 5-game series. And I do have Veldora to take out Rise as well. I just want to see the Alpha Surge story. I've got exactly the same flow as Sapigas has had. Veldora to go all the way through into the lower bracket semis. You win 5 games on the spin, you deserve respect. And I think that's what we've given them here. But that does mean disrespecting other teams. And I do apologize for that. And the top side... No. Yakubo taking out Eclipse. No, I'm not saying you apologize for it. I apologize for it. All right, this is a very personal apology to chat. Yakubo taking out Eclipse, and Mischief 3-0ing Neptunium. That might be a bit far-fetched, but I think they could get it done in a sweep. Meanwhile, following that, it's always going to go down to the final game, I believe, between Yakubo and Mischief. But in both occasions, I think Mischief are going to take it 3-2 in the upper final and 4-3 in the grand final. I do also have Neptunium taking down Veldora, stopping their Cinderella run in the lower bracket semi-final, but then losing to Yakubo in that lower final. So there you have it, all 4 of our predictions for Challenger. And I'm sure you will all have your own individual thoughts and comments on each of those predictions as we take a look now at the rival. Kicking things off as we tend to do with Archeon and Pegasus.
Well, it's Game 5s yet again here at the play-in stage. This time reserved for round 1. Focus getting knocked out by Uranim with a Game 5, and Flame knocking out Onka with a similar scoreline. Round 2 going to Kazel, who just after Uranum have fought so hard to win their own Game 5, lose one in the qualifying round. Nightfall collecting a sweep against Flame, so it's a bit more harsh of a dropout there for that Brave roster. In the uppers, one more Game 5 for the Sheets here. Streak taking down Atmos and Momentum taking down Aptus. It's the two second place sides for each conference advancing through the upper brackets. But in the playoff stage, the page that everyone in Rival has been waiting for. We will see when that goes through. Of course, you will see Mirage and Carls take on their first teams. And, well, easy victories for them predicted. Game 4 versus Streak for Carls and Game 4 versus Momentum for Mirage. We'll see the top teams clash early here in the upper finals. But now let's move on to the lowers off stream. It's going to be another Game 5 on that part of the bracket here. This time it's going to be Kazel taking down Atmos. So that is going to be another double dropout here in an Archeon prediction. And that's repeated on the mirrored bracket. Nightfall with a Game 5 versus Aptus. Kingsman must be seething right now. Momentum. Game 4 versus Kazel, ending that lower bracket run they've worked so hard to progress in, and Streak from the upper bracket, also knocking down those teams with a dream. And then in your lower semis, another Game 5 Streak versus Momentum. Streak just about getting themselves into a lower final, working so hard just to get absolutely battered by Team Berserkers in a sweep. And then for the grand finals, this is going to be one of the longest streams of all time. All that's missing is a bracket reset. Game 7 victory for Mirage.
Yeah, very interesting. Two first teams clashing again in the grand final. How unpredictable of you, Archeon. We'll see if Kingsman Gas has followed suit in his predictions for the rival tier.
I mean, I didn't want to say anything about Pegasus's comment about Aptus going 0-2 because I think I almost thought for a second I put them 0-2 as well. But the good thing is, no. The good thing is, I see I've got them beating Momentum, so I am more than safe from my GM slander after stream. So to kick it off in the upper bracket, I've got Streak winning in 5 with Atmos. I think Atmos put up a brilliant fight back in their final week, but Streak have been on such a hot streak, excuse the pun, in the last week. I think they'll take it in 5. Momentum ended the season with a lack of momentum, but so did Aptus. But I back the boys in green and black, to take it in 4, as I take Aptus to go through in 4. Uranium Focus, honestly, again, a flip of the coin. But based on Focus's form, I gave it to Uranium. I think whoever goes through, though, will get swept by Kazel. They have got a very good roster, I believe. It's in my notes, they've got a good roster. Yeah, Conflict, Combat, and Mox. A roster I rate highly for at least the play-in stage. And then I have Flame start a bit of a run here. I have them beating Onka in 4, but Onka's poor form speaks for itself. And then Nightfall, who ended the season very well, I have getting swept by Flame purely on the back of momentum for the lower brackets as we move into the playoff bracket. And well, Carls get a Game 5 versus Streak. They knock second in the Ignis Conference down, and Mirage, inevitably, as much as I rate my rival team, they aren't going to get past the team 17-1 and didn't all season long. To the lowers, I have Kazel's dream run continuing in a Game 5 versus Atmos, sending them 0-2. Same with Flame, who knock Momentum 0-2 as well. A bit harsh, but I think Flame will want it more. And then Aptus Kazel, I think Aptus will end Kazel's run. Again, it was a coin flip, but I did not want to put my team 0-2 on the day. So I had to sort of give them that in the Game 5. Then I've Streak ending Flame's run in an absolute quick douse as they go 3-0 to secure that. I've then Aptus beating Streak in 5. Both teams in the same conference, but I think Aptus will have the edge. coming off of Kazel. But then in the upper finals, I have Mirage getting past Carls in 3-1. And I think that loss might be a little bit tough to take for Carls. However, I have them beating Aptus. I think they just have more class and more pressure in their team, and they've showed that the last 2 weeks. Then I have Carls bouncing back, seeking revenge. They go to game 5, and Mirage realise they need to put a bit more of a fight back up. But in what I think is going to be the most exciting tier grand final, I think Carls then take it in 7.
There you go. Carls take down the 17-1 Behemoth. Interesting prediction coming through from Kingsman Gas. Pegasus, you've already spoken us through Arch's predictions. Now it's your own ideas. What do you have for us?
Not as many game 5s as Archeon, that's for sure, but there are still 2 here on screen. We're going to start off with that lower round 1. I've got Uranum taking it in game 4 and Flame confident with a sweep. I do rate Zixify quite a lot, so I feel like he will breeze through this first day. That follows a game 4 win against Nightfall, and Uranum also making that lower bracket run with a close game 5 versus Kazel. In the uppers, I've got a straight up sweep here for Streak, taking a 3-0 victory. They've been on great form at the end of the season, and I feel like you'll see it quite commonly with a lot of my predictions. A lot of it is based on week 9, week 8 form. It is, you do get a week of preparation, but I mean, what else do I have to go off? Aptus, I've got them taking a game 5 win versus Momentum. I would have loved to go off form here, but both of theirs were not the best in that final week. So I think it will be a close affair, but Aptus will just about be able to squeeze it into the upper bracket, where in the playoffs, they will be playing one of either Carls or Mirage. It will be Mirage. I do have Mirage taking that one in a sweep. Like Kingsman said before, going to be a really, really tough team to face at any stage, frankly, with the record they've managed to give themselves this season. I've also got Carls, boring again, the first seed taking the victory versus Streak in game 4, where we'll now move on to that lower bracket. Uranum, I've got them with a game 4 win versus Atmos. Again, it's going to be that upper side going double drop. I don't know why I really loved predicting this this season, but I've done it again. In the other lower round 1, I do have Flame squeezing out a game 5 versus Momentum. Like I said, I really rate Zixify. I want him to take that series, so he's going to take that series. Lower round 2, Aptus beating Uranum. I think they'll get a bit of form back after, getting slapped around a little bit by Mirage. And on the other side, I think Flame's fortunes will come to an end. Streak taking that one in a sweep. They are, in my opinion, the best side that wasn't in that first seed. And you can see that followed in the lower semi-finals, where I do have them getting a game 5 win versus Aptus, where they'll be facing they'll be facing Carls after an upper final game 5 as well. Mirage just about making it into that grand final. Then nice and boring as you like. Game 4 win for Carls. And then the first seed, the team going 17-1, will keep that only 1 loss on their record. 4-2 as that final result.
Yeah, that is not particularly surprising. Mirage taking home the victory. We'll see if that is the case as we get through into my predictions for this bracket. And a couple of similarities, a couple of differences between a lot of us. Starting in the lower bracket, Uranum are going to beat Focus, and then I think they're actually going to take that victory through and beat Kazel as well. I'm on the Pegasus hype train with that one. I think that might be the case. However, Flame will not be afforded the same results. Taking down Onka 3-0, I think we've all predicted that. However, they will fall to Nightfall after they have gone 3 unbeaten at the end of the season. And they will take that one out. Streak versus Atmos. I think Streak just have too much right now for the Death Cloud roster. And then the final game to mention is what I've dubbed the Stoppable Force versus the Movable Object. Momentum versus Aptus, a couple of teams that are very, very lacking on form. I have given it to Momentum just about, but to be honest, it really could be either of them going through into the upper bracket. Speaking of that upper bracket, let's take a look at my playoff bracket then. Again, starting in the lower side, it's Atmos, who I think are actually going to go quite far in this bracket. I've got them beating Uranum, Momentum, and then losing to Streak in that lower semi-final. I do love a lower bracket run. Meanwhile, on the other side, unfortunately, Nightfall beating Aptus, so I do have Dexterity going double low. And then about to go ahead and play, and then Nightfall are going to go and play Streak, lose in a 5-game series. Streak, of course, dropping down after playing against Carls and taking the loss. Mirage also getting the 3-0 victory over Momentum. Carls then play Mirage in that upper final, and I've actually got Carls taking it in the upper final to start with. I think they do take that 5-game series. Meanwhile, in the lower semis, Streak, as I've said, taking the win over Atmos, and then going on to lose 3-0 to the 17-1 Behemoth, and then a bracket reset. Here we go. Mirage take down Carls in the initial bracket reset 4-3, but they can't do it twice, and I've got Carls taking home the victory against Mirage 4-2. That is what I am saying about Rival. We'll see if that does indeed come to pass next week. There is another playoff play-in week happening next week, and it is, of course, the Elite tier, as we again at Archaon's predictions for Elite play-ins and playoffs.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. The first one you will see, and we do actually see a lower bracket run here. It's going to be a Game 4 win for Kings, and then a simple sweep here versus Naguni to see them advance through the lower brackets. On the mirror side, we do have Darkness with a Game 4 win versus Blaze, but a Game 5 loss versus Celeritas. So I would say one of the RSCast favourites here throughout this season. In the uppers, we do have Centurions with the Game 5 victory versus Porphyra, and Miasma taking it in Game 4 versus Deception. Another case of those second place teams both getting the victories, but we'll see how they will fare in the playoffs stage. Shinjiro with a quick win here versus Centurions. That one going to Game 4. Not as dramatic as what we will supposedly see on the mainstream. A Game 5 victory for All-Star to see them advance to that upper final and guarantee themselves at least a third place spot. In your lower round one, Celeritas's run ends early here with a win for Porphyra in Game 4. And on the other side, a win for Deception versus Kings. Those teams coming from the uppers, taking those initial victories. In round 2, coming down from the drop, Miasma with a sweep versus Porphyra to get themselves into the lower semis, where they will face the lower bracket running side Deception after a Game 4 win versus Centurions. And then in that upper finals, RL Ireland getting that Game 5 win to get themselves into the grand finals, where they will earn their rematch versus Shinjiro after they take down Miasma, a rivalry which has lasted throughout the entirety of league play and seemingly in the playoffs as well. But then to end the season off, as Source would call it, a waste of time, a denied bracket reset, with Shinjiro taking Series 1 4-2 and the mirror scoreline in the second series to crown All-Star as your champions.
All-Star as champions on Archaon's predictions, but there are plenty more prediction brackets to go through. Starting with Kingsman Gas. And these are your play-in and playoff predictions, Kingsman. Let's talk it through.
Ah, yes, they are. They are my predictions. Sorry, I was too busy sending cat reviews to someone.
Okay.
Don't ask the context of that. Sorry. Anyway, Darkness sweeping Blaze. I don't think that series will be close. Blaze have had the poor run of form, and lucky Summit couldn't pull it out of the bag when they needed to. So I have that as a sweep to Darkness, but then I have Celery Sticks taking it in 5. I think the momentum for Darkness will get them to 2 games, but I don't think it'll get them the 5th. Kings, then, I've beaten Joel's 3-1. I rate that Kings roster highly, but I don't rate it highly enough to beat Nguni, who I reckon will take Kings in a very surprising sweep. Then in the upper bracket, I have Centurions taking it to Porphyra in Game 5. Porphyra's poor form, I think, will continue as they lose that in 5. And Deception, who had a very average mid-season, I think will shock everyone. I think in very close games will sweep Miasma to send them to the lower bracket playoffs. Moving on to the playoff bracket. Now it is ahead of me. Shinjiru, I have sweeping Centurions. I think that'll be a very swift game to start the day as All-Star beat Deception. I know I've gone boring again. Both first place teams winning. Ugh, how boring. However, Celery Sticks in the lower bracket, I have beating Porphyra to send them 0-2. I have Nguni giving a Miasma their best shot, but giving nothing more as they go out in 5. I have Centurions starting a lower bracket run, beating Miasma, and Celeritas continuing their lower bracket run with a 3-1 win. But I think Celeritas' run ends at the hands of Centurions, who take it in 4, but Shinjiru All-Star at the top. I believe that'll be a 3-1 to Shinjiru. If Pegasus, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a full Dutch team that have played a lot together before, and I think that will help them through this high-pressure scenario. And I believe they'll come out 3-1. I think All-Stars will then send Centurions home, but I think Shinjiru, again, no pressure on their shoulders, will take the Grand Finals in a 4-0 sweep, not wasting any of the broadcasters' time.
Getting it done and dusted on Championship Sunday is Kingsman Gas, and we'll see if that does come to pass as now we switch over to look at Sir Pegasus. He's got another Team Serene that are looking to try and take a trophy. Does he have them winning it though? Let's find out.
Well, you'll find out a bit later, but being top of the table, you don't get featured on this screen. Starting off in the lower bracket, I've got Darkness taking that sweep against Blaze and Kings with a 3-1 victory versus Giles. And then it's a first win here for Celeritas as well in that losers round 2 with a game 4 victory. And to make sure, of course, I am not kicked from my organization, I've got Serenity and Co. of Royal 5 advancing through the lower bracket with a game 5 win versus Nguni. In the uppers, just like Archeon, the second seeds, all victorious here. Centurions with a game 4 versus Porphyra, and a sweep between Miasma and Deception, with Miasma being on the lighter side of that coin. But the playoffs, now this is where I've gone a bit hipster. I've gone a bit exciting. You know what? For the first time, we're going to look a little bit ahead. And I am making a point here that I am the biggest Celery Sticks fan here at RSCast, ladies and gentlemen. They are going to that grand final. I promise you now. I promise you now. But let's see how everything else unfolded before it got to that point. In the uppers, I do have Shinjiru, slow starters here with a game 5 versus Centurions, but ultimately still taking that victory. All-Star, the other top seed, with a game 4 win versus Miasma. And then the lower bracket, this is where it gets exciting. We're going to focus on the bottom bracket first. Deception with the sweep against Kings and the win versus Centurions to get rid of those that were initially in the uppers. And then the team we've all been waiting for me to talk about. They have been on an insane streak for too long now. They were one series away from getting themselves to a joint 2nd and 3rd place record. So I don't think it's crazy to say that they're beating Porphyra in a game 5. They're beating Miasma in a game 4. They're beating Deception in another game 4. And they're going the full distance versus All-Star with a victory to then take on, like Kingsman alluded to, the mighty Dutchmans of Team Serene, where they will get rid of all that fairy tale nonsense and close that book with a 4-1 victory for Shinjiru and Team Serene.
Well, this is certainly a change in pace for the RS cast. Pegasus backing Dexterity, I do truly believe that it is only because we have dubbed them Celery Sticks. We will take a look, though, at my predictions, and there's actually more than one Celery Sticks fan in this call right now. We'll go through exactly how that works out a little bit later on. But as we see, it's Darkness to take down Blaze right off the bat in a 4-game matchup. And then Celeritas will take it over the line against Darkness in 4 games as well. On the other side, it's 2 5-game series. Giles just about taking it over Kings. And then Giles once again taking it over Nguni. Not sure whether we are going to see that one come through, but that is what I've gone with. Meanwhile, on the top side, it's Miasma taking out Deception in a 5-game series, and Centurions beating Porphyra 3-1. I just think the DSQ form towards the end of the season has not been good enough. Let's see where it gets them on the playoff side of the bracket, though. And as always, we start in the bottom. The Giles Fairy Tale run from 6th will be slapped down by Deception. However, you can see on the other side of the bracket, I've got Celeritas to go quite a fair distance in this one, starting with taking down Poor Fura. Over on the top side, it's Shinjiru to beat Centurions. 5 games, I think, for that one. All-Star taking out Miasma, and I think that one only needs 4. That gives us Miasma versus Celeritas and Centurions versus Deception. Celery sticks on a tear. They take out the Death Cloud 3-2. Meanwhile, Deception continue their lower bracket run as they take out Centurions 3-2. That leaves Celeritas versus Deception, 3rd versus 4th in the Ignis Conference. I've got Celeritas to take it in 5. Meanwhile, in the upper bracket final, RL Ireland, I think, just have enough to beat out Shinjiru in that upper bracket final, and they will go to the grand final. I do think Team Serene, unfortunately, will stop the fairy tale run of Celery Sticks, a 3-2 victory in the lower bracket final to give us a grand final of the 2 first seeds, All-Star versus Shinjiru. I think Shinjiru take us to a bracket reset, but All-Star, they ruin all hopes of a Team Serene victory, and RL Ireland take the victory in Elite. There you have it then. That is that is 4 tiers here from the RSC, gone through all play-off predictions made. But there's 1 tier remaining, and it is of top tier. Let's start with Archer's predictions in the Master tier. Pegasus, talk us through it.
Oh, and it is another early dropout here for an Aspire roster. Abyss taking them down in Game 4, and Superstar in that second round as well, with a Game 4 victory here in the Master Division. Superstar not been on the best of forms, but I think that one's going to be up to some chat contention. On the other side of things, Illusion with a Game 4 win versus Berserkers, moving on there to get swept by Leo, to see Leo and Abyss both advance through the lower bracket. And we do have our first Game 5, Team Serene Shokan versus Fort Templar Sovereigns, where Sovereigns come out on top here, going to the next round. Velocity with a Game 4 win versus the man here on a desk hit, Kingsman Gas, to see Kingsman into the lower bracket, and Velocity advancing through the uppers. And I'm interested to see the lower portion of these playoffs, because we know what Archeon and apparently I think about teams dropping from the uppers. Apparently, they just seem to get knocked out immediately. Can we see that playoff screen? Oh, what is happening to these rosters? Starting off, we will have Virtus actually getting a win, even coming from that upper bracket, this time against Abyss. And Shokan, he had to have one. Going double loss in play-ins and playoffs with a close Game 5 thriller here versus Leo. It would be a shame not to get that one on stream. But here in the uppers, Game 5 Mania yet again. Frogs getting a win versus Velocity. And in the Smashy versus Cash matchup, the man who has seemingly been in RSC for many seasons now, taking that victory to get themselves into the upper finals. Moving on to those lower quarters. A Game 4 win for Leo to continue their lower bracket run, and Sovereigns shutting that down of Kingsman Gas. So that's going to be, what is that, 1 win and 2 losses here for Kingsman. I can see it. In the upper final, we do. In the upper final, Aces versus Frogs, first versus first. Aces getting that win in Game 4. They'll go on to play Sovereigns after their Game 4 win versus Leo. And we know that, I feel like this is the matchup realistically most people are wanting that have no horse in a race here. A Cash versus Smashy Grand Finals that comes as a result of Sovereigns beating out Frogs in a Game 4. And now it is all Ignis. It is first versus third on the standings. And it's got Smashy's Aces and Royal 5 taking the top tier here in Game 5.
There it is. Is Arch's final predictions of the day. And he's got Aces winning it all. We'll see if he is right. And I don't think that's the last time we'll see Aces in the top spot either. Meanwhile, we will switch over to take a look at Kingsman's predictions. Just how delusional can Kingsman Gas be? Let's find out.
How delusional can Kingsman Gas be? Wow. Outrageous behavior. Anyways, moving on. I think Virtus, I should call them my team. I think my team will beat Velocity in 4. I think it'll be a close series, but I think we'll have enough to beat them. And I think Sovereign Shogun will be a lot closer than everyone thinks. Given Sovereign's even brilliant running, I think Shogun will give them a run for their money in game 5. Moving on to the lower brackets, I don't see Zenith getting a game against Abyss. I'm sorry. Sorry, Reptic, I see you in chat. But Abyss are a ridiculously good team, in my opinion, and are unlucky to be in the lower brackets. So the fact that I think Zenith barely got in, I think says enough for me. And Illusion beat Berserkers, who had a very poor run-in. And then Superstar, for those of you who don't know, Shark wasn't available for the last 2 weeks of their league play run, and he is back for playoffs. So I believe they will get game 5 there, and I think Leo will sweep Illusion out of the tournament. Moving on to my playoffs brackets, where we see how truly delusional I was, and you'll see not very delusional actually. As I have my team dropping to Frogs in 5. I think that'll be a very, very close series, but I think Frogs will get the better of us at the start. And then Aces beating Sovereigns in probably one of the highlights of the day in game 4. I think Superstar will sweep Velocity out, getting that momentum from the lower bracket. I think Leo will beat Shokun, sending 2 teams 0-2. So not too bad. And to think you have Cash versus Shark in the lower quarterfinals is ridiculous. Which is why I think it will go the distance, but I think Sovereigns will have the upper hand. I do have then a sweeping Leo coming from the lower brackets. And then in 5, I think that my team will beat Cash's team. I do see Ark has mentioned it in chat. Kingsman over Cash. This is purely based off of the week 9 where we took them to 5 with our sub, and I don't know if they were playing sub or main roster. I think we play far better with main roster, so that's the pure reasoning behind it. So I see us taking it in 5. I then see Frogs. We meet Frogs in the final after they lose a game 5 to Aces. I think Aces will just beat them out. And then I see Frogs coming down, beating us again, sending my team 0-2 for the day against Frogs. But overall, I see Aces beating Frogs in the grand finals 4-2.
So, 2 predictions so far with the same first place. Aces predicted by both Arch and Kingsman. Does that continue? Well, we'll take a look at Pegasus's predictions next to see if that holds true.
Well, first of all, Abyss sweeping through the bracket. I'll be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen. It was heads and hands when Kingsman said that Shark did not play for those last 2 weeks. I thought just by some strange turn of events, that roster just decided to stop working. So I might slightly regret that prediction there, but we're going to run with it. I submitted it this morning. Illusion taking on Berserkers with a game 5 victory. They'll be shut down quickly here by Leo with another sweep in the lowers to see them advance to the playoff stages. And then here in the uppers, we'll start off with Virtus versus Velocity. Kingsman Gas, I've got to back you a little. You had a really hard conference. You sit there in second place. I think you'll be able to take down this Velocity roster. I've given it to you in a sweep. And in this other round, I'll be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I was looking into this. I was like, Shokan, they are my boys. I've got to see them going far. And then they had Cash round 1. And I was like, well, that's kind of tough. That is kind of tough. And it will be a tough match for them, clearly, because I do see them losing versus Sovereigns in game 4, sending them early to that lower bracket. But we'll see how that will affect their run in the playoff stages, ladies and gentlemen. At the top, I do have Frogs taking down Virtus in a thrilling game 5. I've loved the streak that Frogs have been on. I see a very, very offended Kingsman Gas, but I'm a bit of a streak merchant. I've seen some of the other predictions you guys have gone around as well. I know that there are some similar mentalities around here when it comes to late season streaks. And even though they're going to technically have 2 weeks off, I'm sure they can keep on going. Now, that smashy matchup versus Cash, Sovereigns versus Aces. I've got it going to game 5 as well. I've got it being that series that everyone is looking for, especially with Cash coming out of retirement. He's had his time playing Rust. Now it is time for Rocket League. Now in the lower bracket, Abyss taking down Velocity. It's going to be a double dropout here for Redirects, and I will apologize to Hazard in advance publicly, but in DMs, I'm going to continue to slander him. In the other lower round, Shokan, I've got them taking a game 4 win versus Leo, and I've got them taking out my good friend here on the desk as well. Just because I think it'd be funny. Like, I just think it would be good here. All his disrespect earlier for Sezon makes me really happy that I locked in this prediction. Let Shokan take on Virtus. Why not? We were 1% away from topping our table. But of course, every single percentage counts here. On the other side, though, I do have Smashy's Aces with a sweep versus Abyss, and then progressing through Shokan, fun's over. Smashy has arrived. He'll be going to that lower finals. In your uppers, I will have Frogs versus Sovereigns. Again, I've just got to give it to Cash here. It will be done in 4, and they'll find themselves a spot in that grand finals. And here in the lowers, the only reason, again, I give Frogs 2 games here over the, well, trusted talent there that is on that Aces roster is because of that late season form. And I do give that a lot more weight than I think a lot more people tend to do with these predictions. And then in the grand finals, series 1, I've got Aces taking it in game 6. And what I think could be the grand finals we have ever seen in RSC-eu in the Master Tier. I've got a game 7 for that second series. Like I said, Cash may have announced his retirement, but he's come out kicking here. RSC, of course, being his main tournament, but I did hear that he will be competing in some other bubble tournament called the RSCS-EU main event. Everyone knows RSC is where it's really at.
Absolutely. Although the casting pairs this weekend might disagree. We'll find out as we start to move forward into my predictions for Master Tier in RSC. And at this point, we reach the point of the day where we're looking at the no player knowledge, just vibes predictions. That's where we're at, folks. That's where it is. And let's take a look at exactly how that worked out for me. So, yeah, Aspire, I mean, they've been a bit slandered in these master predictions. They've been predicted for a sweep in pretty much all of them. So they will be swept again. Abyss going through, and they're actually going to beat Superstar as well. Why not? Didn't know anything about the players, so here we go. We're pushing them through. Abyss getting through in 4 in that one. Meanwhile, Illusion going to be taking down Berserkers. Going to be a tough game, but a double game loss week for Berserkers in week 9 really has not set them up for success. And then I do believe that Panthera do have the form to beat out Illusion and get through into the playoffs as well. Over on the upper side, I've given some credit to Kingsman Gas, a rarity here on the RScast, as I give him to the win in 5 against Velocity. Meanwhile, I've given absolutely no respect to Sir Pegasus, as Sovereigns with their form, I believe, are going to take down Shokan and send them into the lower bracket for playoff day, which we can take a look at how that shook out right here, right now. Abyss, I've got them taking a big victory, 5th, playing against 3rd in the Glacies Conference. I've got Abyss making a bit of a run here. I've got them 3-0 against Velocity. Meanwhile, Panthera... Sorry, Pig. I've got them beating out Shokan in a game 5. That's going to be 3-2, I believe. But if it is any consolation, Pegasus, I've also got Leo beating Dexterity in the very next round. So don't you worry about that. 2 losses for my panelists. Although we should take a look at the upper bracket to see how we got here. Frogs, I think, are going to take out Dexterity Virtus. I think that's going to be a 4-game series. I don't think it's going to be particularly close either, to be honest with you. Sorry, Kingsman. Aces versus Sovereigns. I've got Royal 5 taking out the Sovereigns. That's going to be a really tough game. Just think Royal 5, again, they just have a little bit too much right now. Meanwhile, in the lower bracket, Sovereigns are going to take out Abyss 3-2, going to stop the Shadow run. Leo, they are going to take out Virtus, as I mentioned earlier, setting up a Fort Templar versus Panthera lower semi, which should be won in a sweep by Fort Templar. They will then go on to play the loser of the upper bracket final, which I do have as the Royal 5 Aces. I think the Team Amphibians Frogs can't say no to form. I know the Aces have exactly the same form, but I do think we will have a top 3 of all of the teams that have gone 5 from 5 in the last 3 weeks, I guess, as Frogs take down Aces. Aces then play against Sovereigns in what I think could be one of the matches of the weekend. 3-2. I think Sovereigns take it into that grand final where Frogs play Sovereigns, and I've got Frogs to take the victory in 6. That is my prediction. So, yeah, a couple of different winners, couple of vibe picks certainly from my side, but that is where we all landed. So, as always, I've been seeing that we've been getting absolutely roasted in chat, so don't say anything until those results start coming through, and then and only then can you start to roast us, because obviously no one knows how the end of the season is going to shake out. We'll see exactly how it does, but we've done a little bit too much of looking into the future, of predicting, of trying to figure out with our Mystic Meg and our crystal ball what's going to happen. Let's take a look at what has happened. And let's go to the clip of the week. Let's take a look at the VT for all of the potential clips of the week from week 9. Well, there you have it, the clips of the week for RSC Week 9. A couple of very, very good clips in there, and then also Kingsman Gas was there too. Pegasus.
I knew it was coming.
I've been thrown a softball down the middle. I've just hit it out of the park. It's the way we do. Pegasus. I saw you celebrating when Emil's clip came up.
Oh my goodness.
And I figured out why, but go on, please do explain.
All right, starting off, we need to really proof check these clips. Make sure they're not on scrims. Make sure it was in the correct goal, because I don't know how on earth we have seen Kingsman Gas score a goal like that in the correct net for once. That is honestly something unbelievable. And I'll be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I was sitting here stressing because Kingsman's goal was so clearly the best.
It was.
Until Emil's. Until his teammate. I was like, thank the heavens.
Come on.
I started celebrating a Rhinosaurus because that Emil's clip is clear. It's the clear best. Sidewall, power, top right corner, postage stamp shot to knock Kingsman Gas out of contention. If you guys are not voting Emil's, you're on a madness. Like, you cannot not vote for Emil's for that clip of the week, because second place is Kingsman, and if we're being real, as clip of the weeks go, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Emil's clip was amazing. That was the standard we want to have here for the end of the season.
Kingsman, you're getting quite acquainted with second place, aren't you, buddy? That's something working out quite nicely for you. As I think even you have to agree that Emil's has taken this one today.
Oh, 100%. No.
Yeah.
And you'll know the worst bit.
Go on.
Emil's hit that in our first series, We did back-to-back series. So I scored that. I was thinking, oh my god, clip of the week, and I realised Emil's hit that in our first series. And I was like, yeah, I've just got no chance, have I?
Yeah.
I'm happy. I've ended up on the right side of it for once. I'm on clip of the week instead of fail of the week.
That's
But
true.
yeah, no, Emil's is so clear. It's not even a competition. I'd love to vote for myself in chat and give myself a bit of an ego boost. But yeah, no, Emil's are so clear, and I'm just happy that two people from the same roster have ended up on clip of the week. You don't see that
fair
very
enough.
often.
It's a very good point.
Very good.
It's a very good point. But hey, you are getting some love in chat. Certainly 4 votes for Kingsman Gas, but it looks like Emils is taking it even without my vote. I think it's fair to say that reset off the right-hand side, redirect, my apologies. Aiming for that top right corner. Very, very nice from Emils. Congratulations. But Team Dexterity looking very, very good in the final week. Let's remind ourselves of those clips of the week, and especially that special shot from Emil. There you go then, Emils with the victory for the clip of the week. But as always, we've got to take the good with the bad. And we do have a fail of the week this week. I believe it's only one, and I have been given context behind it. But I think you guys should just enjoy and watch, and I will provide the context behind it afterwards. So this is your fail of the week for RSC Week 9.
What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
Clear there. Running with the soft touch to himself, trying to get the pass into the middle, and he does. Pairs with the 50. Can he get there in time? He can't. And it's cleared away by Anthony.
12 seconds later.
But it goes. They need to score this now. Tank with the touch. The streak has ended. I cannot believe it. I am fucking fuming.
Okay, so it turns out we had 2 clips. I've only got context for the second one because, yeah, that first one, that ain't need no context. That one was crazy. But, of course, the open net miss from Ronan, from Mischief. They so nearly finished the season on 18-0. They almost went fully unbeaten in the regular season until they decided to play a game with, they changed to Scarabs. And the reverse sweep came through. That Illusion team were 2-0 up in the series. They had 18-0 in the palm of their hands. They were 3-2 down in that game. They missed the open net to take it to Game 5 overtime. And that cost them their one loss of the season. Gentlemen, I mean, Kingsman, it is rare that we've got 2 top-tier fail of the week clips here on RSCast. But on this occasion, I mean, they were both almost as bad as each other.
Yeah, they were, and Ronan appearing, I think, for either the second week in a row, or the second time in 3 weeks. So even though they're 17-1, he's making a habit for himself. And also, can I just say, as soon as I saw Shattered and the clip opened up with him in the Ninja Turtles car, I don't think Stream wouldn't have seen it. But the first thing I did when I saw that, I just did this. I didn't even want to see the clip. My GM trolling. No wonder they lost 2 series this week if he's trolling like that. Honestly, fraud fusion confirmed. And well, Ronan is gonna win fail of the week regardless. 10 votes to 8, very close actually. Both almost as bad as each other, but Ronan oh, actually that's a bit harsh. Single-handedly throwing his team's chances of going invincible. I apologize to Pez for earlier statements. I maybe should have said it to Ronan.
Yeah. Very, I mean, maybe you should have done Pegasus. That is one of the ways of all time to lose an unbeaten record in a season.
Kingsman, I'm going to have to disagree with you because you were forgetting the full context there. They were like Rhino said, they were 2-0 up in that series. They got cocky. They got confident. All 3 of them switched to troll cars on stream for that game 3. Lost, panicked, and got reverse swept. So I'm sorry. That's a clear fail of the week for me because it was just so unnecessary and self-inflicted. Shinsu, obviously my lovely captain of my challenger team, told me what happened, and I went back and watched a stream. He said that he felt bad for them. I told him, first of all, no, be a shark. You're a competitive player. You got playoffs next week. And second of all, I said, listen, that was self-inflicted. They did it to themselves. And either way, they went 17-1. I mean, I know it's not 18, but it's one of the best seasons we've ever seen in RSC. And we know that the only pain they can really put on themselves is self-inflicted or to the hands of Team Serene Yakubo. So we will see in the upcoming week.
We will see, but that is going to be Ronan taking home your fail of the week. I think we should all enjoy one more good laugh. Take a look at those 2 clips again before moving on. So here are your fails of the week, including the winner, which is Ronan from Illusion.
What are you doing?
Nothing. Me? Just hanging around.
Clear there. Going with the soft touch to himself, trying to get the pass into the middle, and he does. Pairs with the 50. Can he get there in time? He can't. And it's cleared away by Anthony.
12 seconds later.
But it goes, they need to score this now. Tank with the touch. The streak has ended. I cannot believe it. I am fucking fuming.
There you go then. Your fails of the week successfully done and dusted. We've all had ourselves a little laugh. But as always on RSCast, we go from good to really bad to really good as we start to take a look at our weekly awards. And we are going to start with prospects. This week, I'm going to give it to Sir Pegasus to start us off.
Sure, I'll take this one on. Immediately, you can see 3 of the very same System of Solaris players taking a gold spot for MVP, finisher, and playmaker. It's Tinnock with a 570 points per game, a 2.0 goals per game, and a 1.71 assists per game. However, he was equal with King Ether. Had to go to tiebreakers there to take that top spot. We're moving on to the striker. It is going to be Psycho. I never really know how to pronounce this name, but they always get themselves on the stat sheet every single season. It's actually going to be an equal 0.67 shooting percentage all the way down the board. So I can imagine Again, there it is pronounced Psycho. There was a lot of tiebreaker action happening as well. Lana's so close to taking that top spot for assists per games with a 1.67, only 0.04 behind Tinnock. And for your saviour, it's the man, the myth, the legend, Big Chebs of Panthera with a 2.33 saves per game.
Shout out my boy Chebsy. Love that for him. Fantastic work for the prospect tier. Let's take a look at the challenger tier. Kingsman Gas, take us through these awards.
And MVP is Yak with 491 points per game. From the FA list, it's going to be Quabby as your finisher, 1.67 goals per game. Ronan's on there as well, just shame he couldn't net the one where it was most important. Your striker with 60% shooting is KA from Dexterity roster. Yak also showing where he gets all his points, and that is assists per game with 1.67. And then the GM himself, Eddie, showing up on the list. I don't believe they made playoffs or play-ins. So his season ends, at least he picks up a saviour.
At least he picks up a saviour for sure. A couple of awards there for Yak as well. Shout out, as we've said. Moving on to the rival tier. Let's take a look at these. And once again, a couple of victories for one player, Pegasus.
Yeah, absolutely. And they did have a double win week. You can see where a lot of that credit can go towards its Strafe with your MVP and your playmaker. 574 flat points per game and a 2 flat assists per game to go alongside it. You can see as well Latin actually closely behind there for that MVP with 550 points per game. He won't be complaining too much, however, because he takes the accolade for finisher with 2.25 goals per game. Your striker will be Deltor with a 0.67 shooting percentage here for RL Ireland. And moving all the way here to your saviour, it will be Cram with a 3.11 saves per game. Unfortunately, it wasn't quite enough to get that extra, what was it, 0.08% win percentage they needed to make that play-ins. But at least he gets to leave the season with something.
Yeah, absolutely. An award in the final week is always a nice one to hang your hat on. And let's see if anyone's going to be able to do it from the elite tier. Well, obviously people are. Just who? And Kevin taking home a couple of golds as well, Kingsman.
Yeah, and for first time in a while, the MVP stat is tied. Both Air and Kevin, 535 points per game. You don't see that very often. Air might be feeling robbed as Kevin also picks up the finisher, so could have split the awards, nonce, but we know we don't do that here. With 1.75 goals per game, Lolly, the celery stick sub, with 86% shooting accuracy. Bailey from the Aspire roster with 1.6 assists per game, and Saf on the back line for Illusory, making sure they don't concede goals.
There you go then, making sure they don't concede. And a shout out to Kevin as well, MVP and finisher, both of those trophies. Finally, we go to the master tier as we take a look at these results. And there's no Kingsman Gas to be found, so I can't make a joke. Over to you, Pegasus.
Well, you can make a joke that there's no Kingsman Gas to be seen here on the screen.
That
I mean, no
was
surprises
implied,
there, right? Well, Alpha Surge, we do have Charm showing up 3 times. This has been the week of multiple awards here for the players of the week. They'll take your MVP, your finisher, and your saviour. And I must say, they are taking that MVP medal by quite some distance. Tomster and Cash sitting on 552 points per game and 522 points per game, respectively. Then you see a big jump of essentially just about sub 700 there for Charm. That is, I think, one of the best point totals I've seen for point per game ever, being a host here for RSCast. So really big up them for that week. And also that's why we see them again farming those points from the goals with a 2.2 goals per game. Again, big difference between themselves and second. Skays getting 1.6 and Crisps with 1.57. But now for your striker, something different now. A Systema Solaris player with a 100% shooting percentage. Am I going to ask the same question we ask every time? No, I think we're better than that now. How many goals? Who cares? In bronze as well, I do want to point out Skays making another return. So they were an offensive force this week, just not enough to take the gold spot for either finisher or striker. And then moving on to playmaker, Bloomshe of Frogs with 2 assists per game. And look at the 2 players they've had to beat out. Smashy on 1.38 and Jazz on 1.22. Not bad competition to have behind you. And then your saviour, like we said, Charm taking it with a 3.0 saves per game. And Jazz, likely in any other week, would have taken that accolade with a very healthy 2.89. And lovely Kansas, 2.75 saves per game.
That is your weekly awards. So after that, we always take a look at the team of the week. We pick out a specific player from each tier. We bring them through to show you and show off. It's going to be Crisps from Frogs in the Master tier, Deadly Wet Wipe from Saturnia in the Elite tier. Rival is represented by Sarge from Deathcloud Atmos. Local is going to be from Neptunium in the Challenger tier, and Axiom is Montbéliard's representative from Prospect. Kingsman Gas, pick out one of these players and have a talk about them.
Well, considering Frogs isn't an Aspire roster, I'm very surprised that Aspire have got a Bon here.
Good point.
But in all honesty, what I'm going to talk about is Deadly Wet Wipe for Elite Saturnia. I believe he's their sub, actually, or he's minimum value, or near enough. And he's got Team of the Week in a week where they definitely needed double win to secure playoffs. Obviously, they didn't secure it, but still definitely worthy of his shout out.
Yeah, it also looks like Local is on Shadow Shadow Eclipse rather than Sistema Solaris Neptunium. But we'll make a pass on that one as well. Pegasus, someone other than Deadly Wet Wipe, pick them out and have a talk about them.
I always love Crisps, ready salted, cheese and onion. No, absolutely not cheese. I'm kidding. Crisps, he's a really, really good player. It's a player that I've interacted with on a few occasions. A lovely guy. Nice to see him performing well alongside it. And is he a player for Frogs? I don't think he is of Aspire. Yes. Can someone confirm that for me? Well, I predicted them very highly, of course, in my master prediction. So actually, I know everything about Frogs. I made very, very educated predictions. So it's the perfect week to close off, to secure their top spot on the table, and of course, to put them in good momentum as well, heading into the playoff stage.
Yeah, absolutely. All of these players doing very, very well in their own respective tiers, though. So congratulations to each and one of them as we then start to close things down. I do just have to remind ourselves, yes, we do have the mini games brackets, which means that we will have the final standings for each of our individual mini games. If we can take those as our pretty much last order of business. And there you have it. The overall leaderboard in the fantasy is Stingray taking home the victory with 11,422 points, almost 300 more than second place, which is Mr. Efficiency. Third place is Wessel. Meanwhile, over on the other side of the predictions, the overall leaderboard is Rox with the victory, 243 points on the board. Wessel once again taking home a medal. This time it's silver in the predictions, and RMD taking home third place. Overall in the tiers, though, we've got Seam getting the fantasy for Master, and the predictions going to Mr. Efficiency. Elite, it's RMD with the fantasy win, and Rox with the predictions. In Rival, it's Rapids winning the fantasy roster, and Wessel winning the Rival. In Challenger, it's Stingray with the max number of points in fantasy, and Rapids taking home the predictions win. And finally, in Prospect, Stingray once again getting the win in the fantasy, but Stingray also getting the win in the predictions. So a couple of nice gold medals there for Stingray. And congratulations to everybody you see in front of you. And also thank you so much to everybody who took part in our mini games this season. It is greatly, greatly appreciated indeed. Without you guys, we would not be able to run them. Right. one more thing to do, and that is give you all of the details about the streams happening this week. I hope you've got a pen and paper, because there are lots of them. Tomorrow night from 8 p.m. CEST, 7 p.m. BST, we have got the Prospect play-ins. They get underway as we go all the way through 3 games tomorrow night. Then on Wednesday, 8 p.m. start CEST, 7 p.m. BST for a start. There you can go. You can see it in front of you right there. The play-ins continue then on the 1st of May on Thursday, my apologies, which will be an 8 o'clock start for Challenger. Friday, we also get the Challenger final round of play-ins, and then that is followed by the playoffs taking place on each tier, starting off as we always do with Prospect on Saturday. That is a very, very early start, folks. Set your calendars. 6 p.m. CEST, 5 p.m. BST on Saturday. Playoffs kicks off for Prospect. And then on Sunday, it is Challenger, 4th of May. And that is also a 6 p.m. CEST start, 5 p.m. BST. You can also just take a screenshot right now. You can take a look at the rest of the streams for the entire playoffs if you would like to. We are going to be inundated with streams here on the rsc_eu Twitch channel. Make sure you give us a follow. Make sure you are locked in so you never miss a single stream of the play-ins and playoffs. You will not want to miss all of the action. And breathe. Right, let's finish this off then. So Pegasus, any final thoughts going into play-ins week?
My goodness, what a long stream. Like I said, this is one of the favorites of the season usually. And I tell you what, chat, this is the most agreements and least heated chat I have ever seen for one of these predictions. It's definitely not sarcasm. I want to finish this off with Viva Aspire as well, who need all the love they can get after all those predictions we just put against them. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go to the same thing I do every single week. I am here. This streams, ladies and gentlemen, this streams, and you'll want to catch every single one of them. This is what 9 weeks of league play action all come together for. It's that playoff stage. It's crowning a champion and getting all those wonderful, wonderful bragging rights. So I hope to see you all in those broadcasts, whether you're a player or, of course, a spectator.
Absolutely. And Kingsman, you're going to have to wait a couple of weeks to take to the field again. I hope you're going to fill that time watching all of the RSC streams from all of the tiers. I know you absolutely adore Prospect as we start to look forwards into the rest of the week. I mean, it's playoff season. It's exciting for spectators and players alike. What are your feelings going into the postseason?
Yeah, it's the exciting part now, as Pegasus already mentioned. And, well, for those of you who saw the little error on the graphic, please, play-ins for Master are not being played the 15th or 16th of December. It's May. So, please, hold your horses. We are not waiting that long for it. But, yeah. Also about our predictions, obviously Pegasus mentioned it's probably the least heated it's been in a while. I'd agree, minus Reptic, just pretend he wasn't there. And yeah, but honestly, we do these predictions for fun, and they're there so you can prove us wrong. We love to see a team prove us wrong. We love a lower bracket run, right, guys? So those teams
Celery
in the lower
sticks.
bracket, yeah, especially celery sticks.
Go on, the celery sticks.
Come on. Especially that, but if you're in the lower bracket, make a run, make a statement for yourself, because this is the time of the season where champions are crowned, literally, and the losers are found.
Absolutely. Thank you to our sponsors, as always, for RSC, Badass Studios, Royal 5, and of course, if you are buying anything on the Epic Store, make sure you use creator code RSC-EU. It very much helps our cause here at the RSC, and very much goes towards our prize pools. But as already mentioned by my co-casters, it is crunch time in RSC. Everything that has been happening over the last 9 weeks has led up to this very moment. We wish the best of luck to every single team taking to the field over the next 2 or 3 weeks. All of the luck to each of you. Of course, only one team can win. Could it be you? We will see you live on stream over the next couple of weeks. It's an absolute pleasure for myself, for Kingsman, for Pegasus. Thank you so much. We'll see you very, very soon for some RSC action.